through with a questionnaire, and then you want to talk off the cuff a little bit, we can. But we got an hour on that tape. The only one we got left. We want to get you on half of it, and Cliff Finch on the other. You
What about Elmo? You don't want to forget Elmo.
Well, we ain't fooling with Elmo. We ain't gonna waste our time with a character like that. Now, you and him can cuss each other all you want to. Now, that guy's awful. Bill, I don't think there's any need of me reading that whole statement there leading up to the proposition that you believe a collective bargaining should be encouraged and discouraged in Mississippi. Now, most of the questions that we have on this question there were reviewed with you 4 years ago, and therefore you should be fairly familiar with it. There are a few different questions, but basically it's about the same thing. Well, how do you feel about encouraging collective bargaining in Mississippi?
Well, obviously, I think it's essential that we have collective bargaining. I support the principle and the process.
Well, now, we're not asking you as Lieutenant Governor to go out and help us organize workers, or we just don't want the state government to try to interfere with this process, you see.
Yes, well, I recognize this, of course, as a very sensitive area, and
right.
One in which a great deal of emotions frequently obscure the purposes.
Right.
I think that I would recognize the right of public employees to participate in collective bargaining to the extent that it does not interfere with the public interest, does not impair the ability of communities to function effectively, and for the essential and necessary services to be performed.
That was the second part of our question about public employees. Now, Bill, we're going to have a bill. Well, it's drawn, it's roughed out already. That will deal with this area, which in effect will give public employees about the same rights and lay out the procedure for secret ballot elections for union representation as provided in the National Labor Relations Act. And we hope to have a system of resolving grievances and what have you to avoid strikes in that particular piece of legislation. We know as a matter of some court decisions that these people do have the right to organize and bargain, but they don't have any protection at all. They're just more or less at the mercy of the world right now as far as protective legislation is concerned. So you would be in favor of giving them the right and so forth, provided things could be worked out to safeguard public health and whatever. In other words, avoid strikes as much as possible.
Let me say that I'm certainly open-minded on it. I would of course want to see the form that the legislation took, but I have no deep-seated feelings that would inhibit the passage of such legislation.
In other words, Mr. Winter, let me ask this, that if such a bill passed both houses, you wouldn't veto it, would you?
Well, I ain't running as Lieutenant Governor.
As Lieutenant Governor, I doubt that I would have that opportunity.
I'm sorry. I was thinking about 4 years ago.
Bill, we are using the questionnaire we interview candidates for governor with, so I would hope you keep this in mind. We decided we should use this one instead of the one we're using for the legislature. Now, the next questionnaire deals with the Department of Labor. We've been through this one before. There is a little different phase to the question now that the Congress has passed a National Occupational Safety Law. Are you familiar with that legislation?
I'm familiar with the existence of it. I'm not familiar with the details of it.
Well, as I understand it, in the absence of a state agency to, in other words, to provide the actual inspection of factories that the federal U.S. Department of Labor will be inspecting the factories. I'm not too sure what they want anyhow. The fact remains this law is now on the books, and the employers will have to do a better job on providing safety provisions inside the plants and so forth. Now, the question we're asking you here, number one, is would you be in favor of Department of Labor or similar department to provide the functions of the Department of Labor? And again, as we told you 4 years ago, we're not hung up on the name. And the other part of the question is, if we get this department set up, would you be in favor of it being responsible for factory inspections?
I think we have reached the point in this state where an agency representative of labor, of the employees of the state, is indicated. I have no zeal about what it's called. I do think that this sort of formal representation, a large body of people who are in the ranks of labor is needed and would have my support. As for this department handling factory inspections, I must confess some inadequacy of understanding just how this would operate.
Well, I'm not real sure myself.
Yeah, right.
I'm not real sure myself, but you would be open-minded on it.
I would be open-minded on it.
Yeah.
I really must confess a lack of background there.
Well, I can provide you with a summary of the law. I haven't seen the law itself myself, but I do have several summaries and articles about it. Now, I want you to clearly understand when we talk about a Department of Labor, we're not talking about a department that will be run by the state AFL-CIO or any other organized segment of labor. This department would provide the necessary functions for all working people, regardless of whether they're members of unions or not. Now, this is one of the things a lot of the opponents think, that we're trying to promote a department for the state AFL-CIO, or this is...
I understand that, of course, and in my response a minute ago, I did not indicate, of course, that it would be confined to organized labor.
Yeah. All right. On the workman's compensation end of the thing there, Bill, you, I believe, was from the legislature, and I think was probably one of the authors of the original workman's compensation law, were you not?
That's
And
right.
you are, I guess, about as familiar as anybody else with what this act was designed to do in the very beginning. And we are very concerned over what's happened to that law and the way the commission has been manipulated around, and a number of other things, as a matter of fact, since its passage. Because I don't think I have to tell you when it happened. Really, most of the damage was done back in the 60s during the Barnett administration. And we've got a number of things listed down here we'd like to run by with you. And the first one, make members of the commission elected rather than appointed. Now, we're not really hung up on this elective business, but we are concerned over the fact that for the last few years, this commission, positions on this commission have been given to political henchmen of the governor instead of trying to pick out the most qualified man to serve on this commission. You know what happened to Claude Bruton. You know what happened in the last session. Ed Kemp, the only remaining man on the commission that we've had any confidence in, that knew anything about administering the law, the present governor failed to reappoint him, instead sent down the name of one of his political cronies. Of course, you know the Senate Labor Committee sat on it whenever they get it up for a vote, but he will have to come up for a vote the next time around, and hopefully we can defeat him and get a decent man on there. But this is a problem that we're talking about here. We're very concerned about the makeup of this commission now. Now, how do we go about changing it, improving it?
Well, I share your concern about the commission. Let me say, I think we had a better act relatively at the time it was passed than we have now, and a much better administration of it in those early years of it.
Right.
It has been to some extent made a political football, would not say necessarily that I would jump to the conclusion that an elected commission would be better than an appointed commission. I think what we're really talking about is the responsible exercise of the appointed power by the governor, taking into account the various segments that ought to be represented on the commission.
Of course, the original act, you know, was spelled out, and we don't have anybody on there now that you could say was representative of employees.
I understand that, and we deliberately, with the aid of some of your colleagues, in the original act, provided for the specific representation of labor on the commission. And I regretted that it did not stay in the act.
Well, it's still, the language is still in the
Language still there, just like it was.
It's not, well, it's not, it is not, it was a compulsory requirement as the legislative intent of the law originally was, and I think the compulsory feature has been taken out.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's not working that way.
Not working. Now, the question is, how do we go about correcting the thing? Do we have to do what they did in the National Senate, defeat Carswell and what's the other joker's name, Hainsworth? Is this the route we have to start taking? When he sends one down, if he ain't right, we go into the Senate and try to defeat him? Is this what we have to do?
Well, again, I think it gets back to the exercise of responsible, the responsible appointed power of the governor, and I frankly am reluctant to see us extend too far this elective process to so many commissions and agencies. I think
Well, we're not doing too good for some of them we've already got. The Public Service Commission stinks to high heaven, you know.
I think you could have.
Well, of course, as Lieutenant Governor, your role,
I would not be directly
your
concerned.
role in this situation will be considerably different from that of the governor. So we'll just leave that and go down to the next question about extending the period of duration, duration of the injury benefit period. Of course, you know, we're talking about only a relatively small handful of people in this type of a situation under ordinary circumstances. I believe it's 450 weeks. Very few people draw that out anyhow, unless they're, you know, disabled for life or something like that. So, you got any views on this?
Only to the extent that I, here again, would have a very open mind about it. I have not given specific thought to with this is the idea of the question here that you would extend the benefits regardless of how long the person was incapacitated, rather than.
And frankly, I don't know. I think we have very few cases that would fall into this category. So we're not talking about a lot of people or a lot of money. We're just talking about the poor guy who gets laid up for life.
I would favor the idea.
The idea. Right. Okay. Let's get on to the freedom of choice of doctor. What's your views on that?
Well, I know you and I have talked about that.
Right.
I favor that. I think it is a fair provision.
Of course, we'd also agree that if the employer would like to have that person examined by another doctor, he should have the right to do so, you know. Now, on the next one down there, make employer insurance care liable for attorney fees when worker has to resort to the courts for relief. I think you're familiar with what we're talking about here. This is where the injured worker is forced to settle for less than what he thinks he's got coming to him. Yet if he goes into court to try to collect it a little more, he winds up collecting less because he has to share whatever he gets with the attorney. Now, we're not trying to set up a full-time employment agency for attorneys. Don't misunderstand us.
Well, that's not a bad idea either.
Well, what we're saying is, you know, that when he's forced to litigate, and we can establish the fact that it's been deliberately done, then we think these people responsible ought to have to pay for the attorney fee. That's what we're saying.
I'll buy that. I think what we're really saying is that by virtue of having this provision in the law, the necessity of having to litigate extensively in the courts would be reduced.
That's what we think.
Right.
We think we'll get quicker settlements. All right, we say raise weekly benefits to 2/3 of lost salary or wages. I'm sure you agree that the weekly benefit amount is far too low right now. We'd hoped to make some improvements in the last session, and we got double shuffled over there. I won't burden you with all of the details of that, but the fact remains that we think the benefits under the law are way too low. I'd like for you to express your views on that.
I agree that they're too low. I don't think I would want to commit myself to a specific amount at this point. Here again, I certainly would be open-minded and with respect to any opportunity that I had to participate in the raising of the benefits. And let me say in this connection, of course, if I should be elected lieutenant governor, I will not, except in the unusual case of a tie, I will not have the opportunity of voting on legislation.
Right.
I think that the chief role that the lieutenant governor would play would be in determining the attitude of members of the committees that are appointed, and it would be at this point, I think, that mine.
Well, you'd play another role. You'd play a very important role in what committee considered the bill.
And
who was on that committee.
And the assignment of bills to committee.
Right. Well, we'll get to that committee business before we get through. Now, the next question deals with unemployment insurance. And I think you're fairly familiar with this act. And I'm sure you're aware of the fact that in this last session, we were unable to remove this half of a sentence deal out of there that spells out the formula, and it says, provided, however, that nobody can receive over, before the last session, $40. And the advisory council to the commission itself recommended to the legislature that that be removed from the law and that the formula would be allowed to take over, which would eliminate the need of constantly going back to the legislature for improvements. The question is, really, would you be in favor of removing what is now the $49 maximum from the law and let the formula take over? Actually, if that would have been done in the last session, the higher wage people would have been able to draw about $51 now. This is what it amounts to. Are you familiar with this act?
Without being familiar in detail, I have had some casual conversations about it, Claude, and I.
Well, are you familiar with how it's funded and
right,
and the fact that it's that the federal government sets down minimum standards that the states have to meet? I did a little study on this thing prior to the last session as a result of being on that advisory council of the commission, and we found out that trust fund to which this act is funded and increased over the last 12 years from about, I think it's $29 to about $83 million. Is it 29 million?
Yeah.
To 83 million? That this is an indication to us that the benefits are far too low, that trust fund continually building up. Now, the Congress amended the original act whereby the taxable wage was increased from $3,000 to $4,200, which means there's going to be more money going into the trust fund, and which means the trust fund is going to continue to build up unless the benefits are raised. And of course, unless we have a lot of serious depression and it's a big run on the fund, it's going to keep going up with that additional money going in it. And we think that money ought to be put in the pockets of the people down here. And of course, you know, a lot of these MDTA programs, what have you, are also based upon the weekly benefit amount, which means we've been losing millions of dollars in these various programs because they were not allowed to set the benefits up high enough because of the limitation of this act. Are you familiar with that? We've lost millions of dollars in this state through a lot of federal training programs, veterans programs and whatever.
Right.
Yeah. All right, next thing is on taxes, my friend. Would you like to expound on that for a few minutes?
That's a delightful subject. Let's see what.
That's on the top of your second page.
Top of the second page.
Well,
Of course, now, keep in mind that you're not the governor, that you're the presiding officer of the Senate. And so, therefore, what we're asking about what would you do as governor would not apply, but we'd still like your position as what you would do as lieutenant governor if the governor decided he wanted to raise the sales tax another half-cent.
I suppose I can be best judged by what I've done before, and that is that I led the fight in the House of Representatives when I was a member of that body against some of these consumer taxes, and tried to substitute some other taxes, specific to the oil severance tax and the funding of the minimum education program in 1953, 54. Got my throat cut in the process, but that's not unusual either. I think consumer taxes are already too high in this state. I am amazed at the naivete of so many people who consider the sales tax the fairest tax, and it's the most regressive tax we have, of course. I've tried this out on a lot of school classes. And I'm amazed that the percentages don't change in different areas. I have been down to Alcorn, for example, and asked the same question in the classes down there, and I say to the classes there, to show you the kind of brainwashing we've had.
Yeah.
I'd say, now you in the legislature and you're looking for a revenue base, and you can have one or the other. You can't have both. You start from scratch. You can have one or the other. Graduated income tax or retail sales tax. What would you vote? And invariably, 90% of them would say sales tax. And I said, why? It's the fairest tax because everybody has to pay. Well, we've deluded ourselves on this thing, and now, golly, of all the states in the country to have virtually the highest sales tax in the nation is I think, bad. I certainly will not, and I say this regardless of what office I'm running for, governor, lieutenant governor, or dog catcher. I certainly would not lend any support to the increase of the retail sales tax. Now, the rest of that question is how you gonna get the money. Hopefully, we won't have to raise taxes, although I think this, here again, we're probably deluding ourselves. Cost of service is going to continue to go up. Expansion of services is going to continue. Part of it hopefully can be made up in increasing the overall economy of the state. I think you'd have to go back and perhaps adjust the income tax as one possibility. I'm not recommending, I'm not advocating that at this I do think, I do say this unequivocally, I think consumer taxes have just hit the absolute limit. And
Well, that's the way we feel.
you put a nickel here on everything you buy, and that's just.
Well, they had our folks a double lick this last time, the sales tax and the income tax, the middle income people, so when it got it to hit the hardest, that's people we represent, you know. What about the oil severance tax situation, Bill? Have you done any study on that recently? How
Not
does it
lately,
stack up
Claude,
now?
no, this was,
Oh, that's
15 years ago now,
yeah.
longer.
What about a tax on timber? We got all these big paper companies buying up all of them. As a matter of fact, they own virtually all of the timber forest land now, except the federal forest and whatever. You done a study on that? Appears to me that this would be a source of revenue if you had to have additional revenue.
I'd want to reserve an opinion on it. I'm really not.
Well, I don't really know myself how we stack up there, but I know that they own an awful lot of land and they're not paying much tax on it right now. All right, let's get on to the school teacher situation. I think that question is self-explanatory. The question is, you know, you in favor of increasing teacher salaries up to the average of the southern states?
Well, I felt as if I made some contribution in our campaign for governor 4 years ago in making that the number one issue, and a number of my friends in the education profession have given me some credit, at least, for the progress that has been made with respect to these salaries. This is an ever escalating thing, and even as we have increased salaries substantially, we still find ourselves behind. I say again very strongly that I consider this the number one issue, the number one priority. We'll support it to the best of my ability.
Okay. The other one's about the dropout problem with the kids in the schools. And what are we going to do about that? Are we going to be able to pass a compulsory attendance law? It's the opinion of some people that it would not be appropriate to try it right now. We need to let things settle down a little more. And there's some other people raise the question, well, if you let this thing continue on, we're going to have a whole generation of illiterates, semi-illiterates, another burden on the state. There's been some other views expressed about the need of restructuring curriculum within the schools, starting at a lower level on vocational ed and stuff like this, that would give these kids some training before they dropped out of school, say at the 9th or 10th grade or something like this. We'd like to have a little discussion with you on that.
Well, I advocated compulsory attendance law 4 years ago, recognized the perhaps increased sensitivity of the issue since then. Still think we must have some means of ensuring participation and continuation in school by our children. You would hope that it wouldn't take a law to make people send their children to school, but apparently it does, and we still have this just fantastic dropout rate in our school. I think it's still about 40%.
There's no way of telling, I don't think. I haven't seen any recent figures on just how many kids we do have out of school.
Well, I've seen.
I think that figure 23,000 is real low now. That's the one we used 4 years ago. And I think it's probably double that figure now.
Well, I have seen some figures, I can't vouch for them, but it indicate that something in the neighborhood of 40% of the children who start the school don't finish high school. Still, I mean, this is a fantastically high figure. It was over 50% just a few years ago. So you just see the drain, the waste of prospective talent here.
What do you...
Why don't we run into this situation on that? The mother said, oh, Johnny don't want to go to school. He's 12 years old. He just got enough of it. He just don't want to just don't wanna go to school, and ain't no need of me in trying to make him to go to school if he don't wanna go to school. So, the result is that Johnny gets out and, he, joins some other boys about that same age, and first thing you know, we got a little gang down the street. And if this thing continues in that direction, why, just like Paul said a minute ago, we're gonna be faced with, 6 to 8, 10 years from now with, an illiterate, generation, that's, gonna be out there at the states. Somebody's gonna have to take care of them.
Right, and let me inject this too. I've had some of my black friends say to me that they could not understand the whites' attitude in opposing compulsory attendance laws, that the presence of a compulsory school attendance law would have the effect of raising the sights, the standards of a great many of the black children, and I think it has been in the black community that so much neglect has taken place as far as insisting on education. I have had the opportunity in the last couple of years to visit a lot of the formerly all-black schools here in Jackson. My wife and I have been pretty much involved in trying to maintain some support for public education, and we have seen the situations where so many of the black children, take Rowan right over here, Rowan Junior High School. So many of the black children that come out of homes where there's only one parent, and that parent is working, and where the children are on their own as to whether they go to school or not, and a lot of them just don't go to school. We do need some incentive, inducement, and it'll take, I'm not sure just a compulsory school attendance law is the answer. Some of the programs you've been talking about, Claude, the vocational training, there's something that would be attractive to them. And
yeah. I've had a little discussion with Father about this. I'm not as familiar with the actual curriculum that they're using in school right now. I'm of the opinion that everything is aimed at a college education. If there's not enough attention given to the kid, it's not going to go to college. This is what I'm talking about. I really think that we need to examine the whole situation and see if we can't begin down in even the grades to begin to orient some of these kids along mechanical lines and what have you. People that we know is never going to go to college, you see.
A lot of them drop out just out of sheer boredom.
Right.
What they're being fed is completely irrelevant to what they want to do.
Well, I want to have some discussion with Garvin Johnson about this and see what we need to start trying to do about changing some of this up, because I'm convinced. Now, we have probably one of the best junior college programs in the whole United States, of vocational ed programs and stuff like that. But, you know, this is not going to solve what we're talking about here with these dropouts, you know. And unless we do something about these kids, they're going to continue to be a burden on society, you know. Okay, you with us on that. Let's get on to the civil service law for state employees. I think that thing is self-explanatory. What we're really trying to do is protect the people on the state payrolls from getting chopped, their head and necks chopped off if, you know, if they don't get out and work for the right governor. We think that the man ought to have a right to vote and so forth. I don't necessarily know that he ought to be allowed to participate in the actual campaigning, but he ought to have some protection. If he's done a good job, you know, that's what we're talking about. And of course, I know that we've got a number of different departments that already have their own type of protection, you know. What's your views on that?
Well, I think we need some career and some inducements for career
Yeah.
for people to go into state administration, state government as a career, it's, so often we just have a hodgepodge of political hacks that, know when they appointed that it's, you know, it's 4 years and out, and, the performance of a lot of these people is pretty poor.
Yeah.
Sure, I would like to see us go to some sort of merit system.
You'd like to clean the place out before you put it in.
Might be some selectivity involved in it anyway.
That next question down there we had on there 4 years ago, that's about the referendum procedure, initiative referendum, whereby you could initiate a referendum on a specific proposal without having to call a special session of the legislature. You know, Arkansas's got that provision, and I understand that we had one prior to the 1890 Constitution.
We did have one at one time.
Yeah.
This, of course, is a part of the populist political philosophy, and that the power should
Derived from the people.
Derived directly from the people, and I think it's a pretty good philosophy myself. I certainly would not object to it.
I think we're gonna get that introduced in the next session, see how we come out with it. I've got the copy of the Arkansas law in the office. Let's see if we can get it adapted to, of course, it'd be a constitutional amendment, what it would be for our constitutional amendment. But you would support such an idea, huh?
Yes, I think so. I find it extremely hard to argue with the proposition that people should not be afforded the opportunity of expressing themselves on any given proposition.
Yeah. All right. The absentee ballot situation. I think you're familiar with that. I think you're familiar with what we're talking about. I'm sure you're aware of the fact that that law was amended, I think, back maybe even when you was in the legislature during the Coleman years, I believe. And the result is that right now only the people in the armed forces and transportation are allowed to vote an absentee ballot. And we've got salesmen, we've got construction workers, we've got college students, we've got a lot of people that can't leave their jobs or come back home from school or won't do it because it's too expensive to vote. What's your views on that?
I publicly advocated the extension of the absentee ballot to these people in my campaign for governor. I
still feel the same way.
Still hold with that, and I think it's inexcusable that.
You're gonna ask him your
Yeah,
question?
Mr. Winter, how would you feel about, and this is taking place in Louisiana, changing voting day from Tuesday to Saturday? Saturday is voting day in Louisiana, and it would help take care of some of these people who are away from home on
I think that's
Tuesday.
probably a good idea. I know that that on some of these industrial elections, you know, where they have to have 30% of the people turn out, they set them on Saturday.
They've caught on, that's when the people
That's
are home.
right, that's right.
These college students, Saturday would be an available day for them to be home, construction workers, people, salesmen, people of that nature that their work takes them away during the week, and that's part of our old program of progress in the AFL-CIO would be advocating election day be changed to Saturday.
We're gonna have to get a bill introduced to see why we come out with that. Sure.
I like the idea of Saturday.
Yeah, well, we're trying to put in our contract where the employer pays.
Going to vote?
Sure. You're gonna kill that, what you do?
We got some that's got that.
Yeah,
It sure.
No, it comes up every time.
It sure ought not to be a penalty though.
Well, now,
It
you know,
affect what it is.
we
when
asked
you-
for 2 hours.
Yeah.
That's it. We asked last year.
Bill, what about the second part of that question on the constitutional amendment allowing 18, 19, 20-year-olds to vote?
Told them in Gulfport yesterday, at a public forum down there, that I was for lowering the voting age to 18.
It's been ratified, I think, by about 26
26 states, I believe, right.
Yeah. So we might have a chance to vote on it in January, but
I think we probably will. I doubt it for,
But, yeah.
doubt it for, what'd it take, 37?
Yeah.
37 states.
We're gonna have to make some changes in the House Representatives here, though, before we get through there. Probably get through the Senate, but I don't know about the House. Stack committee. Of course, we're working on that too, you know.
I want to ask Bill a question. I want to try a question on you, Bill, that we are asking the candidates for the legislature. And of course, as Lieutenant Governor, you could be extremely influential if this was introduced, and we're hoping it will be. You know, the names of people who are registered to vote is supposedly, under our laws, public information. After having been on this job 11 years and went in and out these circuit clerk's offices trying to get this list, which we use in our political education program the year around, I find that it's the most secluded legislation there is. I mean, not legislation, but information. It's real hard to get. Now, the question we're asking the candidates for legislature is this: would they support legislation which would require the registrar, which is circuit clerk in each county, to provide a list of the qualified electors in his or her county, alphabetically by precinct, once a year, or, maybe two if we couldn't get on a yearly basis, to some state official, preferably the Secretary of State. In other words, a guy running for office, you as a candidate for Lieutenant Governor could use this information. Candidate for governor, any candidate for office, statewide or local. And I know that, and we've had to pay about 4 or 5 times the price of the thing on numerous occasions. I know the candidates have. And actually, there's no place to get this information. And with a law of this kind, and a number of states do have this, you would have one place that would have this information available. And it's just something that it seems to me would be extremely valuable. And the haphazard way that it's kept, if you get it, if you try to carry on a program, you got 82 different manners in which it's kept, and it's almost an impossibility. This is a question that we wouldn't necessarily have to be once a year, but in other words, a law that would require the reporting of this information at regular intervals to somebody in the state capital, so it would be available to the people. After all, I understand, and I think everybody else does, that it is public information, but it's almost impossible to get it.
You have to go in and make up your
The
own.
way it's
list.
kept.
Good
at the
idea,
present
sure.
time.
Some of these clerks and some of the girls in the offices, they make money every election, typing
They
up.
make
that
up
list.
the
Yeah,
list.
that's, you know,
They're
incentives for
wild, you
office
know?
get circularized.
Right.
You know, if you get it.
I was asked 4 years
$400 a year.
ago, for instance, in Lee County, EV, Molly McGee and I went in the clerk's office up there. And the clerk there had told their deputies, that the nights, Saturdays, they could take the master list and they could make these copies and sell them. And brother, they were doing business. They wanted $250 for a list of the Lee County qualified voters.
Well, that's a discount on what,
What some of them charging.
Well, I figured that having run for governor, that you knew a little something about this. see.
But talking about resistance and getting the list, I see where the registrar of one county resigned the other day rather than saying he was going to open the list.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Right, I saw
Yeah,
that.
I saw it.
Give up the
October.
job
Gave up the
first.
job.
right?
Said, no, I haven't done it. He resigned.
Right,
October.
right, he
Yeah.
resigned the job before he'd opened it.
You would be in favor of that type of legislation, I assume.
Oh, I think it's a good idea.
The people in that legislature don't sure ought to be in favor of it if they've had to go out there and pay through the nose.
I'm
of
sure
the
every
list.
one of them's bought them at one time or another. They
Yeah.
had to, really.
I think you might pass it if you would include in it that one one copy would be provided to each member of the legislature.
Right.
You
Right.
know, I don't, like I say, we don't have any legislation.
That would be the best way to get that bill through.
Something.
We shall remember that. We have that bill drawn where a member of the legislature would be given a copy.
Just a copy, once it's accumulated.
Okay, Bill, you got anything you want to talk about that's not on the questionnaire, legislation that you're interested in trying to get through as Lieutenant Governor?
I think we've covered most of the
Things that you're
more
concerned about.
important things.
Well, let me ask you a question that's not on the questionnaire, of course, that we are very concerned about, and that's the makeup of the committees in the Senate. And as a former member of the House, you fully understand the importance of the Speaker and the role that he plays in appointing committees, and that's one of our major problems right now is the stacked committees in the House. As Lieutenant Governor, would you consult with representatives of our organization on committee appointments, especially on some of the committees that we're very concerned about, like judiciary and insurance, stuff
too,
like
if you
that.
would be
Labor.
if you would be amenable to my doing so.
Yes, sir.
Certainly.
That's
I would see.
we're in fairly good shape now in the Senate because Charlie Sullivan did do a pretty good job on appointing the committees, but we're in real bad shape in the House. Yeah. Okay, now the big question, do you want organized labor support?
Sure do so.
How do you want it? Wide open and above board or behind the bush?
I'll take it any way you see fit to get it.
You take it any way you can get it, huh?
I will leave that to the determination of your organization as to how you
We can,
choose to support
yeah.
the candidates of your choice. I would hope that I might be worthy of your support, and we'll leave that to your best judgment.
Well, let me say this, that the only way, and I think this has been explained to you before, the only way that we can be effective with an appeal, as a matter of fact, on a few occasions, as you are well aware of in the past, we've attempted to support candidates for the highest office in the state who wanted the votes but did not want anybody to know about it. We've attempted to support them in the past, and it was a tragic affair because it was very well guarded. It was guarded to the extent that our own folks didn't even know who we're supporting, you see. And what it does, you have certain members that are certainly, they have certain ties with certain candidates because of something Pop done or Grandpa or something. And they're fragmentized to a certain degree, just naturally to start with. And in the absence of public endorsement, announcement of public support, then you just don't get the people, you see. You lose your people, as a matter of fact. And there's only one way that we can be effective, and that is open and above board. And if you try it the other way, sooner or later somebody's going to say, well, what about this business? Ain't the AFL-CIO supporting you, you know? And you're gonna, and it's really, it's rough then when it leaks out, you see. And you're gonna have to meet it head on sooner or later.
I think you're right. I think you're right. And in retrospect,
After having had experience 4 years ago.
well, that was a damn if you do, damn if you didn't situation there that I was in, with getting beat over the head for my quote liberal leanings. I was attempting to shore up whatever position I could to try to compete with the forces that I was arrayed against. And
You had some people who you wasn't too comfortable with too, didn't you?
well, I don't know about that. I was trying to get them wherever I could.
Well, now, Bill, you know, if we if we go through the procedure of recommending candidates, a convention goes on record, then we're free then to go to work for the candidate. Now, of course, in addition to our own members, we try to influence other folks. We have quite a few black members in our organization. We've got organizations set up that we've been working with, voters leagues and stuff like this, and we would attempt to influence those people along with members of our unions and friends and what have you. And we think we have been fairly successful in a few of the past elections in putting this type of alignment of forces together. You know, young Buck Ross didn't knock off Cy Corley by accident. You know, this is the kind of thing we do. Well, anybody else got any questions they want to ask the man? Why don't you shut down the tape recorder? I think we got it. Yeah, well, let me say, Cliff, we appreciate you coming over and meeting with us.
Claude, I might say it's my honor to meet with you, and I say that sincerely, even being asked to come. I think everybody knows me and knows what I stand for. We want to thank you, sir. Want to represent the people, and you definitely part of the people, no question. And as I'm sure y'all already checked me out before I got here.
Well, I've been knowing you for some time myself.
Amen. You and I legislature together, right. Yes, sir.
Cliff, would you like me to read that question through with you? And now, let me tell you this. This question was designed primarily for gubernatorial candidates, but we thought we'd use the same one with you, and where it doesn't apply, well, we'll point out, of course, and then we'll ask you one or two questions that's not on here.
Okay, just remember, I just got out the grand jury.
Yeah, yeah.
They had me working all day today. And the pretty ladies part of the country. We getting ready to try a bunch of cases, and of course, when the grand jury's in session, you know, that really takes up all the time, day and night.
It's hard to run a campaign and,
amen, sure is.
Go to court all day.
It sure is.
Mm-hmm. That first question up there, of course, applied, you know, talking about the National Labor Relations Act and so forth. You familiar with the National Labor Relations Act, aren't you?
To some extent. I didn't bone up on it before leaving.
Yeah. Well, anyhow, you know that it established certain rights and so forth of working people, and that encouraged the process of collective bargaining and what have you. We got some people in Mississippi that think that workers ought not have the right to organize. A question we're asking the candidates: do you believe that collective bargaining should be encouraged or discouraged in Mississippi?
Of course, I might preface my remarks by my background. I'm sure, Claude, you know that. Remember, I was born and raised on a little country farm. I only had, as some of you know, and I'm sure some of you might have come this way that I've tried to come, and I'm still a country boy and always will be, and hope, good Lord, if I ever got past being a country boy, y'all take me on down to Whitfield and put me 6 feet under. But you know, I've had to work from the very beginning, when I was 5, 6 years of age, plowing a mule, and of course you know, the only way I got back through school, when I came back out of service, you remember I went to a little country school out in Shuford, and then on to Cortland High School, and finally finished up even in the Army during the latter part of World War II, and came back home. And you recall it at that time that I had went back overseas and worked as a dragline operator and bulldozer operator and heavy equipment operator, and I have been a working man all of my life. And I believe in work, and I believe in the working man. And you notice I was not ashamed by putting on my little resume that I'm the working man's friend. And I say that sincerely, even though I know it's going, in certain areas, some people might think it's not. It doesn't mean by that I'm not against anybody. I realize that that first place, I'm not gonna have the support of the big ones, and I think y'all all know that before we start here. It doesn't mean that I don't want to represent everybody, fairly and honest, and I think that's all that you want represented here. And certainly I believe that, I know that when I was coming along and remember the sweatshop days, I can remember those. I remember working for 25 cents an hour, a day, not 25 cents an hour, I want to clear 25 cents a day, chopping cotton, picking peas and those things for my neighbors.
You look like you're as old as I am. I can go back that far, I didn't think you could.
Thank you. I'm gonna pay you off for that compliment. But I do realize that certainly with collective bargaining, it has caused our working people to have a better income. And certainly, as we know, that Mississippi today is the lowest income per capita in the United States. And I'm not worried about the United States, I'm worried about the people of Mississippi, and I say that sincerely. I wish that every person in Mississippi had the biggest income of any place in the whole world. And I think we live in a great nation. I realize that our country is a great country, and we may have some faults, and I know that we do. Just as my announcement, I realize that we had to discard some of the old things that we've had in the past and reserve the things that are good. And I believe we need to look at new approaches with fresh faces. And this is one of the things that I believe. I believe that with the proper collective bargaining, that our people in Mississippi will be able to have more income, better homes, better living conditions. And I'm proud to be a part of having a part in raising the income in our state government. And I'm sure that if you take the time, and I know in Claude and all of you sitting here, you know how I was when I was in the legislature, and you know how I was as district attorney. You know that some of the people not too long ago in Yellowbushy County, some of you may recall this, when there was a strike going on, and a lot of people wanted me to prosecute some of the people that were striking. They were my friends, and I didn't fail to prosecute them because they were my friends, because I prosecuted the other day one of my closest friends. But I would not prosecute the person because they hadn't broke the law, even though they came to me and tried to use some type of, at least not coercion, but persuasion. And I felt that I would do my job fairly and honestly, and I could not do it. And this is where
You're referring to the Ram 2 situation?
I'm referring exactly to Ram 2. And I realize that I might have made a few enemies, but they know that I stood for what was right. And that's exactly the way I feel about, and I'm not against management.
You did enemies. You probably made more friends over there than you did enemies.
Well, they were all my friends, and I certainly did not intend for somebody to try to start shoving something down our throats. And I know that, and I say that sincerely, I'm not against management. I want it understood. I'd like to have every management in the country on our side, no question. I want to be honest about it, because I want to represent the people, and I'm going to represent the people, and y'all like me as your
labor and management.
But most important, I'll give my opposition the big shots. I'll take the working man any day, I tell you. And I say that, I feel this way about it. I wouldn't be down here tonight, and I think you know this. I have nothing to hide. I want to be frank and honest, and you know this is the only way that I can be, is sincere and honest about it. So I do know that collective bargaining has helped every Mississippian, regardless whether he's white or black or blue or green or what color he might be. And this is what we want to do. And you can check my records on this, and I think you see the same thing, because I feel very humble in representing the people, Claude.
You've been a claimant's attorney too, haven't you?
All the way.
All the way, yeah.
And
now the second part of this question deals with public employees. I don't know if you're familiar with this area or not, but the National Labor Relations Act does not apply to public employees, and we feel that we need some kind of legislation that would set up the machinery for secret ballot elections for municipal employees. We'll say, public employees, and if the majority of them vote for union representation, then the governing authority ought, as a matter of law, should be required to bargain with them. And in this particular legislation, we try to work out a grievance procedure to resolve disputes without strikes and so forth. You know what I'm talking about. Avoid the strike as much as possible as far as public employees. One reason we have strikes for these particular people is the fact that they don't have any other recourse but to strike, you see.
I know. And I think in 99% out of 100, you go to the last, even more than the last mile, and bend backwards in order to prevent it, because you know that you're costing your men money when you do so, and you know that. And I know in my heart, and there's no question about that. I believe on public employees just like I do anybody else. A public employee should not be treated than any other working man.
Right.
That's simply because he's a public employee that I realize that our government must go, and I'm not for chaos. I'm not a person that's runs for it. I do believe that we should retain a good, clean, and honest government. I do not believe that in certain instances where a person is, or I mean a city or a state, I don't see why they should be treated any different than any other working man, because most of the time they generally work harder. Sometimes they say, you know, that you're on the fat of the payroll of the people, but I do feel that in my heart there should be no difference, and possibly there may be some limitation I could understand, maybe
Policeman, fireman,
right,
some
because when
something there, I guess, to really work out the thing.
But that can be worked out.
Right. Well, we think we've got a bill. We're working on it now that will do everything we've been talking about. And of course, as Lieutenant Governor, you would be appointing committees that will be considered in the legislation. And it's going to be very important that those committees, when you set up to appoint the committees, that we have friendly committees. You know what I'm talking about. Of course, I was going to ask you this later on in the questionnaire. Let's see, I think we got your position on that pretty well, Cliff. Well, let's get on to the next one on the Department of Labor. We point out we're the only state that don't have a state Department of Labor. And we're not hung up on the name, but we don't have a state agency to function as a department to provide the services and compile information. You just can't find it in this state, see? And then, of course, another part of the question down here is we point out that the Congress recently passed a national occupational safety law, and that in the absence of a department to provide the factory inspection service, the federal government, the U.S. Department of Labor, will be doing the factory inspection, and that's going to happen. We can show you that. We're going to see that it happens.
It's going to happen regardless of what Mississippi does.
Right. And the question there is, are you in favor of a Department of Labor or a similar department, and would you be in favor of this department handling factory inspection? We have a lot of people mangle in this state, in these plants. You don't read much about it, but
listen, I think you know, I know more about it than anybody, probably as much about it as most of
cases,
it.
Don't you?
In fact, that's, you know, we get them every day, and I know where people, arms are cut off and legs are cut off and beat up the rest of their life.
Yeah.
And of course, this is something I'm very strongly for, is something to help our person that is injured, when they are injured on a job and cannot make a living.
We're going to get onto that workman's comp thing a little later on.
Well, and of course, this has some bearing on this particular part, and you do have it in here.
Yeah.
But and of course, by this, I mean, as far as the Department of Labor is concerned, I want to be specific and honest about it. I have not considered this particular phase. There's no question if you for the working man, you want to do anything that you can not to take advantage of men, and you don't want that.
Well, now, let me clear this up now. A lot of people that oppose the Department of Labor think that we are trying to get a department for the state AFL-CIO to run. This is not what we're talking about. We're talking about a state department that will look out for the welfare of the working people in this state, whether they're members of a union or not. You know what I'm talking about. This is what we're talking about. We certainly wouldn't be running the department. We don't want the department, you know.
But
we got a Fish and Game Commission. We do a better job of taking care of the fish and the wildlife than we do the people.
I know that. I'm with you. And that's not condemning Game Fish
Well, we
Commission
got a good
course.
fishing game. We
I'm
more than that, Sue.
Oh yeah, right. I want to have a little recreation, go out there and fish. I never get time, but I would like to every once in a while. I'd like to have better areas that we might be able to relax and rest in for all the people. And certainly I would not be opposed
Well,
to
we
what
get
I
the
can
legislation drafted, we'll be talking to you about it, we'll be going over it with you as to what it does, you know. There's been some, thought put forth here by some of the gubernatorial candidates that they'd like to redo the A&I board, maybe the R&D center, and maybe set a section up and for the A&I board to perform this function. Well, that's all right with us if they want to do it that way.
That's
As long as we have some agency to provide the service, that's all we want.
one of the things that we didn't need very badly is our safety regulations and I know that not all of the companies that way. I think more people management are becoming more cognizant of the responsibility of safety, and this is one of the things that the Labor Relation Board would be. And of course, I think a lot of times that we use the word union, that of course naturally it begins automatically thinking that you know it's bad. And certainly it's bad DAs and it's bad governors, and sometimes you might find a bad union, and certainly you're going to find some bad management. There's no question in that.
Right.
Really, I think it's good for a check and balance system without taking advantage of any. If it's within the purview of A&I board, and I am certainly for revamping the A&I board. Not that they haven't done a good job. I'm not criticizing anybody, but I'm wanting a new approach with a new outlook in life for Mississippi. I think we're sitting on a great era. We'll just join hands together and work together. We don't have to fight one another. We don't have to fight management. We don't have to fight among ourselves. We don't have to fight sections, and this is the reason why I announced in every section of the state, if you recall, so that we would be representing every person that had the goodwill of the state of Mississippi at heart. And I say that sincerely, and this is the way I feel, and certainly would be in this area, because I know that one of the things, tourists, really, a lot of times we get political appointments and not necessarily on the basis of a man's qualifications.
Right.
And whether or not it's being handled by, I would think that certainly the working man ought to be able to be represented on this labor relation board, and not to take advantage, of course, of anybody. And I know that you're not asking that.
No, we want some fair shake.
Fair shake.
That's all.
And I'm here to tell you that Cliff Finch is going to give you a fair shake. He's going to give everybody a fair shake. He's going to give, I think everybody's entitled to a fair shake. Even when they're wrong, I think they're entitled to a fair shake. I think a man that breaks law, that he's entitled to a fair trial.
We met with Charlie Sullivan in here this morning,
And y'all,
one of the statements he made was if he didn't have any more problems in dealing with anybody else than he did with us, he'd really have it made. He can't get he can't get John O'Keefe to cooperate like he can us, you see. John's always giving him trouble.
Listen, I've been along there, and you know, and I both know that.
Well, let's get on to the workman's compensation question. One of your
one of my pet peeves.
One of your fields, so to speak, being a claimant's attorney, and of course we went through a little verbiage there about when the act was passed and by experiences and so forth, which you are familiar with, and I'm sure you remember what happened to the act back during the Barnett administration.
Right.
And I'm sure you remember the fact that Ross wouldn't reappoint Claude Bruton to the commission, one of the real outstanding members of the commission. You remember all of this.
Man, do I remember. You don't remember me sitting in the governor's office down there.
Yeah.
I tell you, Claude Bruton was my very dear friend, and I think did more for the working man from the workman's compensation point of view than any other person in the state of Mississippi.
Yeah.
Of course, that's what Governor Coleman appointed him for, and that's what he did.
Right. Well, when we started out with this commission, Cliff, I think we had a good law, we had a good commission. And unfortunately, when Ross come along, well, that practically emasculated the law, and then, of course, started to work on the commission.
His best law that I would consider one of the best, except for the money.
The amount of money, yeah.
until they started hacking away with it. And of course,
Yeah.
then now you notice in the last 2 or 3 years, the courts begin to hack even further.
Yeah, right.
But I
Now,
do believe that,
The commission, and we asked the question about whether we want the commissions, or whether you'd favor electing them. Now, we're not really on record and don't have a hard set position about wanting them.
you got me recorded. I know you're on record.
Just for our purposes.
This is for our use, in case we have to come back and review what somebody actually said. This is not gonna be made public, so
Well,
just be at ease.
I don't mind making it public if you want to know the truth.
Okay.
I guarantee you.
All right, but anyhow, I just want to tell you the reason that question's on there is for purpose of discussion because of some of the expenses we've had, and just recently, I think you remember what John Bell did. Ed Kemp was about the only decent guy left around and knew anything about the law, and he didn't reappoint him.
He's
said,
supposed to
"I
be in
wanna-"
the management too. wasn't
Yeah,
he?
most unusual thing, and here, labor is trying to get the guy back on the commission, see?
Well, he's, was the only change, hope we had.
Right, so now we've got a commission made up of political appointees, strictly based upon their,
Political.
association. Political. Now, how do we change that?
By gosh,
How do
giving
we-
the people the right, and that's the reason why I've told you, Claude, and I've told every person in the state of Mississippi, the people of Mississippi are going to write our platform.
Do you think
It's
we're going to
hard.
be elected?
I think I'm
Should-
going to be elected.
Should we try to change the law here for these members of the commission to be elected by the people?
I believe in the people. I
Would this,
believe in
would
the
we wind up with a
intelligence of
better
people.
commission this way?
I tell you, I believe in an elected system. I honestly, now I don't know how you feel, but I want to tell you where I feel in my heart. I believe people are intelligent people. Sometimes emotionally, we get our emotions get away with us. But as far as political appointments concerned, this is taking the rights of people out of the hands and putting it in the politicians. And this is exactly the reason why I've said from one end of the state to the other, from Tennessee to the Gold Coast, from river to the Alabama line, that people should be running the government, and very few. And I'm sure y'all all up high up on the totem pole beside me and most of the other average person. But a very few people, and I dare say very few of you have been called upon for advice. I'm sure Claude and maybe most of you have been called for some advice, but generally that average person out here in the field has never been asked for advice about what you think about something. They always want to put it up what I'm going to do. And this is what I'm taking out, and I'll assure you, when you elect me as your lieutenant governor, it's going back to the people. And you're going to be asked, and the people in every section going to be asked, their advice and consideration. Without any rash promises, this is what we want to do, is let the people, when we go back, we're fixing up questionnaires right now to find out what you think that should be done about every part of our government and who should be appointed. I don't think it's definitely, I'm against political appointments 100% because you've seen what has happened, number one, in our workmen's compensation. Fortunately, we still got some in there that want to be for the working man, but they're scared, they're scared of their jobs. And they're afraid if they make a wrong decision, I guess they're going, what's going to happen.
Right.
And I know that some of them in there are my very dear friends. And I know, as you know, that they would like to do what's right, but they're scared of their jobs. And when the governor is going to control it all, and the lieutenant governor is going to have a lot of power when you elect Finch, because he's not going to be a yes man to anybody. And the governor's not going to be coming down telling us what to do, because it's a separate office, and in my opinion, the most important office in the state of Mississippi. Governor has a glory, as you know. He has the right to veto, but we have the right to override anything he says. Not a bill that comes through that Senate up there that Finch is not going to handle. And he's going to refer it to a fair and impartial committee for everybody to be heard fairly and honest about it. And that is you, management, the world, the little man, the big, and all. That's what you want.
That's right. Let's see if we can get on through the rest of.
I'm taking up too much of your time, excuse me.
Well, no, we got plenty of time, but.
Very seldom I get to express my idea. People don't ask me,
What about that?
I want to be asked.
All right. What about that second item on there? Extend benefit period of duration of entry. Of course, as an attorney that's handling this, we're talking about only a small handful of people.
Something similar, I believe Florida has something similar to this, don't they have? I know that I have a real good friend that I've represented for years, and he's been drawing workman's compensation for the last 12 years that I know.
Yeah.
When I first started practicing, he was injured in Florida, and he's still drawing. He's permanent and totally disabled.
Yeah.
And it should be, if the man is hurt on the job, he should be able to draw permanent and total disability as long as he remains there.
That's what we.
And it costs very little.
Right, because it's not gonna apply to too many people. Really.
Very few people that would be.
I don't think it would run the cost up all that much, do you?
And certainly I do not, and I am not, I mean, I think we got to consider certainly the cost basis of anything. But we realize that probably, I really don't know but one man that is permanent and total for the rest of his life, it would be drawing, really.
I think we're
Yeah,
talking about just a real small group of people, really.
And of course, I can understand that I would be for, and giving both sides a fair hearing on this clause. I know if it's not too expensive to the people, and certainly a man that's totally disabled, I'm for him getting every penny that he can get, because you know it's hard enough to live today on 2/3 of the minimum amount that you may be making, and of course not to exceed what, 52.50 a week. You can't make $40 now. You know, they're trying to raise $40 and cut out half of the benefits that you've got. When they gave you that $5, they took off half the other benefits, you know.
Yeah, right. What about freedom of choice of doctor there? How do you
Freedom of choice of doctors?
Is that the
MDs?
third of the C, allow work
Wait.
freedom of choice of doctor?
I mean, I'm not.
Well, you know, right now, the worker does not have the right to select his own doctor.
You were still on workman's compensation.
Yeah.
Very definitely, I think a man should have freedom of choice, and at the same time, I think the employer should have the right to have him independently examined.
Right.
And if they can, in other words, if I want to go to a particular doctor, and you know that I am a working man, if I want to go to my doctor, I think I should be able to go to him.
Right.
And yet, I think the employer should have the right for an independent examination and treatment, if necessary, for their own doctor.
We'd certainly go along with that. Now, the next one is make employer insurance carrier liable for attorney fees when worker has to resort to the courts for relief. Now, as a plaintiff attorney, you've had experience in this field, and we're not trying to establish a full-time employment service for attorneys, but I'm sure that you...
I'm not in favor of just the lawyers either, I'll tell you. I'm not going to the lawyers for their support, I'm going to the people for their support.
All right, but I want to try to make you fully aware of what we're talking about, and I'm sure you know what we're talking about. We're talking about these cases where the worker is forced to settle for less than he really ought to settle for, because he knows if he has to go into court, he got to hire a lawyer, that he's gonna, wind up by having to pay out enough of that settlement and lawyer's fees that he winds up with less. And the insurance people know this, therefore they get cheaper settlements. Now, we think that this would do a couple of things. It would, number one, of course, the injured worker would wind up with more of the money that he should get. But number two, we think we'd get a lot quicker settlements in a lot of situations. Do you agree with that or not?
I agree with your philosophy wholly. But I would like to say that I've studied this, and I'm concerned, because I see when a man, say, if he draws $1,000 and he turns around and pays $250 to his lawyer, and then time he pays most of the time, like now if he goes to another doctor, he's got to pay his own doctor, and time he pays his doctor $500, he comes up with $250.
Yeah.
I do think it should be some limitation on this, and I say this sincerely. I feel that there should be some graduated scale on it, or for example, maybe if the employer, which is really the insurance company,
Right.
if he, under bad faith, or said something more than just say flat that they're gonna pay lawyers' fees regardless, it could be thrown open. Everybody get a lawyer and go into court and know you're gonna make $1,000 and he get to try in every case in the country.
Well,
Most lawyers not that way, and I say 99.9% of them not that way. But I don't want to throw it wide open for lawyers' bill.
We don't want it wide open. We don't want it
I
wide
do
open.
feel-
But when we got the case where that insurance company is deliberately stalling.
Now, that's a different
To
thing.
get that man to settle for less, you know, and this man then has to go to court. Now, he's gonna have to prove that the insurance company did do it to him.
That's right. Now,
That's a safeguard
a
you want.
safeguard I want. That's
Well, this
right.
is what
'Cause I
we're
want-
talking about.
I want to protect the employer too, and we
Right.
do too.
Right.
And this is something that, and I felt this is what you were talking about, but I
Yeah.
wanted the record to be clear, because when you read it back, I don't want any misunderstanding, because I want to feel, when you read it back to me 4 years ago, when we go out of office as your lieutenant governor, I want to be able to tell you that Cliff Finch lived up to his word.
Right. Okay, I think we're together on that. Now we got the question down about raising weekly benefits to 2/3 of lost salary or wages. I think that you've already mentioned the fact that the monetary benefits are not sufficient.
They're absolutely not
And
sufficient.
of course, we tried to do something this last session, and the game players over there out-fumbled us.
You got $5 and cut out 100.
Well, but this last session.
Oh, yeah,
this last
you're
session,
talking about
we
last
lost the bill
session,
in
yeah.
the House,
Yeah.
because one of our so-called friends deliberately drug it around, didn't get it on the calendar soon enough, and the time run out, and didn't get to vote on the bill, but, we did make a little improvement, got $5, and in the 68 session, this is what you were thinking about, but.
And I'm
You
still
know, with the high
disgruntled
cost
with it, I'll
of
tell you.
living, huh?
I'm still disgruntled with it. I'd rather had the 35 probably, because when they took away a lot of benefits, and I'm sure you know the benefits
Yeah.
they took away.
Well, we think that frankly, just to tell you how we feel, we think that this particular piece of legislation needs revising completely. We think the benefits are too doggone low. The only good thing about the law, I guess, that still remains there is the unlimited medical.
That is good.
That's
one-
about the only good
that's-
feature in that law, and it's a constant fight.
Mhm.
It's a constant fight to keep that.
Well, you
Now,
know-
I could get the weekly benefits up tomorrow if we would make concessions on the medical end of it.
Yeah.
You know that.
Well, you know, the reason why they put the particular part in the law that it would be solely for the employer to select the doctor, which means the insurance company will select the doctor, is that to limit medical. You know, that's what it is. And of course, when the law was first passed and the courts held that man could go to any doctor he wanted to, and they had to be paid.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, so many of these insurance doctors will send a man back to the job before he's well. If he's willing to go.
99%, they send him
Right.
back if he's not willing to go. They still send him back. Right?
They say, I have dismissed you, you know, and you.
And they own the company payroll, and they admit that most of them own these retainers, you know.
Yeah.
And of course, they all good people, good doctors, and I'm not saying they would do anything dishonest, but at the same time, they may not do exactly what is,
That
Yeah.
the injured workers face with this.
generally a fella kind of favors a man that's feeding him, you know. They'd give benefit of the doubt.
Yes, human nature, right. The next question deals with unemployment insurance. We were able to make some improvements in this area in both the 68 session and the recent adjourned session. They sneaked one over on us in this last session. Even the lieutenant governor did catch it. He told me that in here this morning, that the effective date, I found out after they passed it, that the effective date wasn't until January the 1st when the $49 goes in.
Of next year.
Next year. January of next year. You know, that was a real sneaker on that. Even though Charlie admitted he didn't know about it that day, but anyhow.
He wants to be elected too, of course.
Yeah, right. What we tried to do in this session was to get this, that's about a half of a sentence out of that law. It goes in a lot of detail spelling out the formula. You know, 50% of the average weekly wage, blah, blah, blah. And you know, provided, however, that nobody will receive over $40. Well, we got that provided, however, up to 49. But we wasn't able to get that provided out altogether. What we're trying to do is to get that limitation out where the formula will take over, and as the average weekly wage goes up, then the benefits automatically go up. For instance, if we got it out this year, the maximum amount would be around $51. Then this would eliminate the necessity of having to come back in session after session trying to get the weekly benefit amount up, you see.
What about the standard of living, increasing standard of living, if it would increase on the basis of the standard of living increase?
Well, of course, we frankly.
Cost of living.
Right. Well, of course, we'd like to see something like this. There's a lot to be desired about the act. Frankly, the percentage ought to be more than 50% of the average weekly wage, but at least if we got that limitation out of the law, each year as the average wage was compiled, and as it kept going up, the maximum amount would go along with it.
What would be the cost? And
Well, no cost. Let me tell you what you got, friend, and this is one you need to really study. The Congress passed some amendments to the law, made some changes mandatory in our law in this last session. One of the changes was to increase the taxable wage from $3,000 to $4,200. That means that quite a bit more money is going into the trust fund through which this act is financed. But here's the thing that you need to do some digging on, is that over the past 12 years, if my memory serves me right, the trust fund has gone up from about $29 million 12 years ago to about $83 million last year. Now, with this additional money going in, it's mandatory, the trust fund is going to continue to build unless we bring up the weekly benefit amount. Now, to answer your question, it's not going to cost anybody anything.
As long as it
It's not
don't
going to cost anybody
I'm for
anything.
it.
But
And I mean,
we've
again,
got-
I'm coming back to the people.
Right,
I mean,
we've got, here's the situation we're confronted with, Cliff, and you need to know this.
I mean,
The
I'm asking for
Manufacturers
advice.
Association, and some of the Farm Bureau people, and don't ask me why the hell these people are in this, but they violently oppose this law here, and making these improvements for weekly benefits. You know why? Because they know when we get this up, we're
Workers'
gonna
comp.
come up here on workman's comp and insist that the injured worker ought to get more than that unemployed worker, and that's what the fight's all about. I'm convinced of it, just as firm as I can be.
Well, I want your advice. I'm asking you.
Well,
and
I'm telling
everyone
you,
for
I'm
advice.
telling you what the
That's-
situation
that's
is.
it.
Well, you got a situation
And I'm
right
not-
now where the unemployed worker is gonna get $49, maximum
Right.
$49.
The injured worker
And
gets
the injured
40.
worker's gonna get 40.
That's what we got right now.
Yeah.
You need to talk about some of these things.
I sure do. And listen, I don't have all the answers. I want your help. I want your advice. And
I mean, this would be good campaign talk.
That's
You to talk
good.
on that stump out there, what needs to be done. Now, in addition to the, something else you might know, but in the event you don't. Something else that we've got here is that the MDTA programs, the manpower training programs, the veterans training programs, and all of these federal funded programs, the benefit amount allowed in these training programs is tied in with the weekly benefit amount of unemployment insurance. In other words, as long as we only had $40, they could only allow up to $40 in a program, which means that we've had millions of dollars out here stay in Washington.
Could have a lot of poor people.
They could have come to Mississippi, you see, and this is part of this thing also. Now, by getting it up,
I
there's
didn't
more
know
money
that.
comes in here.
See, I'm learning, and I didn't know this, and I'm being honest. I don't know everything, but I'm going to try to know everything.
Well, we don't know everything either, but we've been around involved in this with these kind of things, and it affects a lot of our members. Therefore, it's necessary that we do know a little something about them, you see.
If I can get a man making $200 a week, that's what I want to do. And if that'd help him, I certainly want. I'm going to be out there helping him. I'll tell you.
Right.
But if he gets injured on a job now, and he's gotta go off on injured man's pay, he's making $200 a week, and he goes back to 40.
I tell you, you got 4 children like I got. I guarantee you're not going to make it.
That's where we come back up here and we say that we believe, and we thank you, we hope that you will agree with us, that we think that injured man ought to have 2/3 on the workman's comp. He ought to have 2/3 of the amount, whether he's making $200 a week or whether he's making $40 a week.
Because he's adjusted to paying $200 a week, and that's the reason why he cannot adjust to making $40 on the 200, when one man is making 40, he's adjusted to it.
Right.
Even though I'd like for everybody to be making much more than $40 a week.
Ain't that the truth? Yes.
When you say we, you include
Yeah.
Cliff Finch in that week, please.
Claude Ramsey too. That's next question there, Cliff, is about.
I do want to study the cost basis now. I want to
All right,
be
you
fair.
check this out with employment security people out here on West Capitol.
I have written for it
Call
already.
Johnny Aldridge up and get us some figures on it.
I have.
And I think I was pretty close. It's been about a year ago since I got this information, so I'm sure that trust fund's built up even more by now, you know.
How much would it cost? And may I ask a question? Would it be?
Yeah.
Now? How much would it cost? And of course, it's all coming back to the working man, what he's going to be paying for the 2/3 of what he's drawing anyway. Now, as we know, they're going to make a certain percentage of profit anyway. But how much would it cost to increase the benefits to, say, 2/3 of the man's salary? Certainly, it's one of the most desirable things, but I want to
workman's
look
comp?
at it right on by way of. I think, wasn't that what you're talking about, sir?
That's what we went back to working on a 2/3 thing, yeah.
And, which I'm certainly in favor of, but I do want to be honest with you, and I do want to look at the cost basis, because I don't want to run anybody out of business if they treat us
Well,
fair.
frankly, I don't know, Cliff. I haven't got access to that kind of information. I don't know just who would have it.
You'd have to get some insurance company to
Probably
do
an
an
insurance
actuary on
company
it,
to
I
get an
imagine.
actuary to do a study on it, I suspect, is what would have to be done.
Because that's the way it's handled.
Yeah.
The law requires the employer to buy a policy from an existing company, and they set the premiums. And of course, the more benefits you get out of that, the premium, I guess, would be adjusted. But nobody would have the figure at hand unless they had the specifics and they done an actuary study.
Yeah.
But certainly, it would be a desirable effect.
Yeah.
At the same time, you do want to look at it and see what it would be.
Yeah.
Because again, I want to be fair to everybody, and I know this is what you want to be.
Of course, actually, that's a part of the problem, the way the whole thing's set up, in my opinion, since I do represent workers. A lot of them get injured. I know what happens. A lot of times, the employer's paying the premium. He don't care whether the worker collects it, but it's the insurance company. He's trying to save as much of that premium as he can, and this is where your problem comes in a workman's comp. It's not the actual employer; it's the insurance carrier.
Mm-hmm.
And that's they cut them down, you know.
Amazingly, these doggone employers, you know, they don't want the employee to get anything. A lot of the smaller,
Some of them has
I mean,
no objections, but you
right.
fight, then it's
But
with the
your-
insurance carrier.
your larger and better companies that pay better wages
Yeah.
don't fight this. You take your smaller sweatshop areas,
They do.
they fight. They don't want anybody to receive a doggone penny for nothing.
You're right. You're right.
And the insurance companies fight the employees too on those.
You know, they bring pressure on them. You're
Yeah.
exactly
See,
right,
they
sir. You
threaten
sure
to
do.
raise the
Well,
insurance.
but you know what they do to an employer who don't care? Then they drop his policy, and then he goes into this assigned risk business, and then they have to force a company to take him.
Yeah, at a high rate. Yeah. I got first-hand knowledge. I know.
Right.
Let's get on to the school teacher thing here, Cliff.
That's what you ought to
again.
think.
All right, my wife's school teacher. I want to hear about it.
We hadn't covered taxes,
We hadn't covered
Paul.
taxes.
Well, we ain't got, that's right, we ain't got.
Let's talk about taxes.
Oh, easy.
That makes me too.
Well, now this question, of course, is aimed at the gubernatorial candidate, if he's got any program.
Well, don't y'all undersell this lieutenant governor now. Y'all
Yeah,
trying
well,
to put him down here. He doesn't.
No,
you
no, but I
he
want
got
to
more
tell
power
you,
than
you see, I said, see, I want you to read the question. What is your position on our present tax structure, specifically if additional money is needed to balance the budget during your administration? How
Oh,
would
yes.
you propose to raise the revenue? So I want you to
Of course, any bill dealing
understand
with
that
taxes
you're.
would be handled by the Senate, and he would. be
Right,
president.
but anyhow, what is your position, as far as additional taxes concerned on the people?
I don't think, in the first place, if we economize our government, I don't believe that people just can't stand any more taxes right now. I tell you,
That's the way we feel about it. We think
I don't know
we're
how
already
you
taxed,
feel, but I'm gonna tell you.
overloaded now.
Amen. And that was number one in my platform, was to try to economize, and that is to put it on a business-like basis, just like you running your business. That you're not out here wasting money. And of course, when you create an agency, we all know this, and I'm being elementary about it. But when you create an agency, it's for a good cause generally.
Yeah.
But you get rid of it. It's just almost impossible to get rid of it. And I feel very strongly that our government is the people, that we should protect their money more so than it would coming out of my pocket. And I honestly feel this way.
Well, as presiding officer of the Senate, Lieutenant Governor, you would be in a position to
You doggone
have
right.
a lot of influence on any taxes, any additional taxes or
Yes,
anything
sirree.
that would come along.
And I promise you and the people, there will be no extra tax unless there's and I don't know if any way it could be. I don't think the people in Mississippi can stand any more taxes right now based on the sum of money that they receive.
But if an extreme situation did develop, it more taxes was required, then where would you propose to get it?
I just don't know, I just couldn't feature any way for people paying any more taxes now.
Well, some
but
people say
assuming
that it'll need more taxes if we get a proper highway program. We disagree with that, but some of the candidates are saying for the right kind of a highway program, we would have to get some.
And we do
additional
need
money.
better highways.
Right.
And I'd like to see better highways, and I believe every one of you in here would like to see better highways. You'd have better jobs, more paying jobs. We had a 4-lane highway going from Corinth to Jackson County, or 78 highway, and over on the Delta side. We had something like this, it'd be more money for all of us, as far as I'm concerned. But I just don't see how the people in Mississippi can stand any more money. Increases in taxes now. Of course, I feel
There's
that
other sources other than getting it directly off people. You know, we got all these big landowners.
Yeah.
People need to get a timbered severance tax, and you got I don't know, I haven't took a look at the oil and gas and severance tax on gas and oil, rather.
well, this is something
Right
I'd
now,
like to
compared to other states, but
Yeah.
these are the places that you ought to be looking instead of the average person.
instead of looking just solely for sales tax.
Right. Well,
I'll
I think
tell
you
you.
stated your position pretty good on that one. Let's talk about your wife.
Good, being pretty good, put excellent on
As
it.
a school teacher.
No, but I've heard, let me say this, I heard something the other day, and y'all might can tell me, because I do ask people every place, and this was some larger company, and I'm not against large companies, but this place in South Mississippi where they had large holdings would not allow the people to go up on, and I think they exempt to some extent from paying taxes on the particular timber they're growing in this nature. But then they will not allow the public to go up on their premises to hunt or fish or these places, and this was down in,
Closed.
right. And of
We didn't
course they-
take the land out of circulation
That's
for
right.
any purpose.
So if they're gonna be able to control it on the basis that if they're gonna require the landowners, then these people to be in charge strictly as owners, they should not be given any benefit from the state as far as the exemption are concerned. I mean, I feel that it should be equalized on the basis that if you give a man something, he ought to get something in return. Just don't give it to him.
Well, most of these large paper companies, and that's mostly who they are, that own all this forestry land, they are leasing this stuff out to these hunting clubs.
Well, that's exactly
Of course,
what I didn't
it's
want to
about-
call any names,
It's
but
about the same kind of a situation.
Yeah, but it's still
For
just
the
to a
general-
private group.
To the general public, though, he's
That's
excluded.
To the public.
And
He's
then-
excluded.
And that company's getting the money out of it. He's getting a
Right.
royalty for his
Right.
hunting rights off of it, and then cutting the general public out of it. You and I
Right.
can't go down there.
Well, it's not.
And yet you and I are paying for that
Well, I'll
man's.
tell you what the
when we
situation
exempt it.
is in that respect. You're rapidly running out of places where the average person can hunt.
That's right.
That's
And
what you're running out
All
of.
controlled or closed.
that's right. And this is something that we also put in our ideas that we would be working towards, not as a platform, but something for developing areas for the
Public
people,
places.
right, public places. When we give a man benefits, he ought to be able to give us something in return for it.
All right, we're gonna talk about your wife and her role as a school teacher now.
Okay.
the question is, are you in favor of increasing teachers' salaries up to the average for the southern states? So you're gonna have to answer that.
I don't think you do. I think you know that automatically. There's no question. I feel that our school teachers throughout the state have been underpaid for many, many years. And I think, fortunately, we've had some real good teachers, and simply because that they had the best interest of the children at heart, and that's the only way. Because you can go to any state around us
And get more money.
and get a heck of a lot more money. And I know that I have two very fine friends from Batesville or in Missouri today. They much prefer to be in Mississippi.
If they could afford
But
it.
they make twice as much in Missouri. And you can't blame a person when they go off like this. And this is something we ought to be, and this is the reason we're losing a lot of our young people, not just teachers, but we're losing them in industry and every other place. We're not providing for our young people to stay in Mississippi that has the brains. Once we educate them, we paying for it.
And they go.
And we
I
ought
have
to-
that personally in my home. My son was educated here in Mississippi. Went to Mississippi College, graduated in elementary education. His first teaching job was at Crowder.
I know exactly. I've played all the many of them creek banks down there.
He taught at Crowder his first year. That summer, he went to University of Alabama. He met over there while there, superintendent of education from Union Springs, Alabama. So while he was studying at the university that summer, this fellow offered him a job down there for almost twice what he's making
Mm-hmm.
at Crowder. Well, he took that.
You can't blame me.
The following summer, he went back to University of Alabama, and while there, he met another superintendent of education from over in Georgia that was there, and he offered him more money than he was making at Union Springs, Alabama, so he went to Georgia to teach school.
All right, now that's a perfect example. Now we paid our money for your son to go to school, just like y'all paid me to go to school. And I was out there driving an old gravel truck every day, and I would blow smoke boiling up out the back of that thing get through school. And yet y'all put me back through school, and I'm the only one that stayed in Mississippi because everybody else makes much more money. But I owe it to the people in Mississippi. I'll always be grateful to people in Mississippi for letting me even work to make $1 a day or so driving an old truck, I'll tell you. And this is the reason why once we educate a person, how much does it cost to educate a person? Many $1,000s.
Yeah.
Claude, y'all all know much more about this than I do, but when we lose them, we're losing our money. If we could reinvest it in them right here in Mississippi, like our manpower program, if we can train our people that's not trained to work in Mississippi, this is where we ought to be keeping. This is the reason why I want to get some large industry in Mississippi. And you notice, if you read my statement that was put out, that we were going to be seeking industry that would pay more than the minimum wage. We want workers that can make a decent living. And certainly all the industries. I'm proud of the industry we got in the state. I'm proud because it has raised the standard of living from $5 a day that I made on the farm, or $2 a day, and it's helped, there's no question. But I know that we need larger industry that will pay a decent wage, and this is something that I'm not going to be sitting here in Jackson calling somebody someplace else. I'm going to be trying to find something.
We all for you. Let's talk about that next question in a few minutes.
All right.
That one deals with the dropout problem. We point out the large number of kids dropping out of school. In fact, that adults, are not keeping their children in school. We raised the question of, are you in favor of a compulsory school attendance law? Now, in connection with that, we also want to talk a few minutes about curriculum in the schools. In fact, we feel that there ought to be a real concerted effort put forth to restructure the curriculum in our schools and get away from this idea that everybody's going to go to college. We know damn well a lot of kids don't go to college. They're dropping out of school, and maybe it's for different reasons. We think I know that this Lieutenant Governor that there's not that this wouldn't something that you wouldn't be able to initiate on your own, but if we were able to come up with a program that would we'll say begin vocational ed of some sort, way down in the grammar school somewhere. And let these kids begin to learn the skills of a trade, and even if they dropped out, we'll say at the 8th or 9th level, at least they'd have some knowledge of how to go out and earn a living now. Now so how do we deal with the whole thing? I know that the compulsory school attendance thing would probably be kind of a hot potato right now because of the situation we've got in the schools. And we're not going to give it top priority or anything like that, but we have got to do something in this state about this dropout problem, about giving these kids something that they can earn a living with before they leave school.
Claude, I say this is something that I've heard all over the state, and I've asked people about the same thing. And this is a solution that everybody comes up with, generally, that we do need vocational training. Whatever name you might put, might not use the name vocational because most people got a bad connotation to it.
Yeah.
But we
need
need
to change the name of that word, I guess.
And use something that
technical training.
Technical instruction or something.
Technical, intellectual schools or something, But we do need, and I say sincerely, that we do need to provide better education and training. And when you train a person, it's like when I was trained to be a dragline operator. I know when I got on an old lever, and you just don't pick it up and start throwing a bucket out there and picking up dirt with it. And you don't grab a hold of lever and start working with a bulldozer either. So it takes somebody a little training. And if we had that in school, well, instead of me making that 25 cents a day when I was picking cotton, chopping cotton, picking cotton, peas, raising potato plants and these things, I was making $2 an hour. And of course, I know $2 an hour is not any money now, but I know back then, I mean, when you jump from 25 cents a day to $2 an hour, making $16 a day, man, I'm doing good. I tell you.
You're doing darn good.
And the point I'm making is that same person that would be making $5 a day could be making $25 or $50 a day.
Yeah.
And this is the reason why that we do need to take care of our people again. The people is what I'm interested in. I know that's what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that we need in our schools, even though we do need better education and we do need better teachers, we need better training, we need to keep our young people in Mississippi. And this is one way to keep them.
And I'm convinced that we've got to get into this thing
I'm
right away.
going to answer right straight to the point.
Well, how much more tape we got, Diane? Time we can run it out.
I'm enjoying this, I
We
tell
have
you.
about 3 or 4 more questions.
Well, we get through the questions and then we'll have a general bull session.
All right.
The next question is are you in favor of a civil service law to cover all state employees except those who are elected or appointed under specific requirements of law? Now, of course, in the statement above that, we're pointing out why we're asking this question, you see. You might want to read that.
Now, is that number 5?
Yeah.
Number 8.
Number 8,
Number
man,
8.
you done got you way past me, done you?
Yeah, of course, this situation wouldn't apply to you as much as lieutenant governor as it would a governor, but we'd still like to know your views on whether you think we need a civil service law to protect state employees.
Again, that takes it out of politics. And
right,
this
it's
is
not a hodgepodge thing now. Some do have and some don't have, it depends on what department you're in.
What I originally had thought, and I'd like your advice on it, not that I'm not going to just follow blindly anyone. I want everybody's advice. But one of the things is that I had thought about advocating, because it is to some extent maybe a little hot, issue, and certainly we want to be your lieutenant governor, is to allow the particular workers in the, say, for example, highway department, for example. If highway department employees want to become under the civil service system, allow them to elect to come under it. Again, we leave it up to the people. I believe, I feel civil service is the best thing in the world, but it may not be the most advantageous thing to say to the people, and it may not be the right time to get it before the people. I believe that we must do the things as we progress, always keeping in
Let me see if I
mind.
understood what you have in mind. Are you saying the people in a government department in the state government, the people, employees themselves, not the supervisors and the heads of departments?
I'm talking about the people.
That
Again,
you're suggesting that those people be allowed to vote whether they come
I
under or
believe
not.
the people, and
They should be allowed to vote?
That's right. And I
Give
think
them
just
the
like,
choice.
Let them
right,
have a choice.
this is what I advocated
Well, I
from the
don't see
beginning.
why we couldn't go along with that idea.
I know that, say for example, the probation and parole board. You know, they worried every time they jump up, you know, who's gonna be elected, and they, you know, run, and of course, the same way with the state employees with the highway department, same way with, of course, thank the Lord, y'all not the state employees, but, I mean, everybody up here in the Capitol building feels the same way, and everybody else, they're scared to death, and you get a good one, and if he don't vote just right, well, he's gone.
Well, this is what we're talking about.
Regardless of his ability.
That's right.
And that ought to be
Okay.
stopped.
But I do feel it's a middle ground for all of us to work together.
Of course,
This
it
is
ought not to
something-
be tightened up. We realize it ought not to be
Right.
tightened up to the degree if you got a completely incompetent person from some previous administration, you ought to have a way to get rid of them.
That's right, I do feel, that's right, and again, the people is handling, as long as you got the right public official there, he's gonna do what's proper in the first place.
Mr. Finch, one reason that we are asking this type of question here, and one reason that we're using the questionnaire that normally would fit the governor's office is that we realize that there's only one breath between the governor's office and the lieutenant governor's office.
You're right.
One
Only
heartbeat.
one heartbeat.
One heartbeat.
And it's something
Also,
else.
one breath.
Hmm.
I mean, if he stops breathing, why,
His
then-
heart's done stopped
then
too.
the lieutenant governor
Is the
is
governor.
it.
That's right.
But the second, you're exactly right, and I want to agree with you 100%. But you know, before it ever gets that governor, that lieutenant governor's gonna have to handle that thing. And I don't want y'all to forget about how important that, again, y'all still think about it in a way that, and of course the governor does have a lot of influence over the legislature, we recognize that. But at the same time, really, I believe that if the lieutenant governor is separate from the governor, that he should be accountable to the people and not to the governor.
I agree.
And I believe that this is what you want in a lieutenant governor.
That's the way it ought to be.
Well, in the first place, if a fellow got elected lieutenant governor, he might not get along with the governor the people elected. They might make a
That's
good
right.
choice for lieutenant governor and a poor choice for a governor.
I can think of that
And if
having
it
happened
wasn't
just a
separate,
few
then the
years
fellow'd
ago.
be in bad shape.
Sure would, and at the same time, you'd want us to cooperate with the
Right,
governor.
right.
At the same time,
We
we're
ought to
gonna, we want to
Yeah.
cooperate with whoever the people elect for
Maybe
governor,
we ought
and
to
will.
poll here and ask Cliff if he thinks he can work with McKinley.
I believe in the people. I tell you, there ain't no question. Because I believe
Well-
the people gonna elect us.
Well, let's get on to that next one down there. I'm sure this is one that you will agree with, you for the people. Now, I want you to read that one.
Which one's this?
Number 9.
Man, you hit the nail on the head right there. And when you, in the markets of the supreme power to govern is retained by the people. What did I tell in my first announcement? Exactly that same thing.
We're quoting the Constitution, if you notice.
Yes, sir. How well I know. And when you say whole, that means whole state of Mississippi,
Right.
and not any particular section or any particular segment of the people. That means all the people.
Right.
And again, as you know, that we must work together.
Right.
A divided home will never stand. Well, I agree with number one without any hesitation. That is, and I think this is in my heart, that the people are the governing body. When someone said, how you gonna feel when you over 2 million people? And humbly and sincerely, I am under 2 million people when you elect me. That I am the lowest man, and I feel this is what our Constitution provides, an elected official should be the lowest man on the totem pole. And this again, when we come back to the people, whatever the people want, I believe the people should govern. Not through emotions, not through and of course, you know, sometimes we act by emotions, but by rational thinking. And again, if the people want a referendum, I believe in allowing the people to have the referendum.
Well, they have this in Arkansas. Are you aware of this?
No,
Arkansas has got a similar provision. In other words, it would take a certain percent of people signing a petition to initiate the referendum. It does a couple of things. Frankly, it provides a vehicle for the people to enact a piece of legislation or a constitutional amendment. And it would do away with the necessity of calling a special session of the legislature to deal with just one particular item. You see what I'm talking about? And since we're going to annual limited sessions, this thing might well be a good vehicle to have in hand, I think.
I can understand where it could, I'm not familiar enough to say.
Well, in other words, you have to have it.
A
certain percent of the people, a certain number of people have to request it, and they just 2 or 3 people who couldn't come out here and jump up and call a referendum. You wouldn't want that.
No, sir. And you wouldn't want it either. But at the same time, if this is what the majority of the people want,
of the people,
yeah.
Again, when I tell you that I want the people to run the lieutenant governor's office, I mean this. If this is what the people want, by gosh, I'm for the people.
When you get in there, you're going to find some people who you ain't going to want to be around trying to run you. There'll be just 1 or 2 of it trying to run that office for you. I know.
I know that. I tell you what, they try to run it as district attorney and as legislator too. And amazingly, the ones that's tried to run it, ones got something that they can gain out of it in their pocket, you know, really.
Yeah.
And they never go back to the people. And this is why I'm going back to setting up an area. I'm going to be back in Tupelo this weekend, and next weekend I'll maybe be in Greenville, or the following week in Natchez, Gulfport, or Biloxi, Jackson. These areas, I'm going to go back to the people on every weekend to find out what they want, and it's going to work my wife and children to death. And I realize that she recognizes this, but this is something. But I want to hear what the people want done. I'm tired of hearing just what a person wants for his own pocketbook. I want to know what the people want. I believe in the people.
Okay, let's get on to the absentee ballot thing. You're familiar with the fact that at the present time only people in the armed services and transportation can cast an absentee ballot, and we got a lot of people. We've got construction workers, we've got salesmen, we've got college students, we've got a lot of people that their employment takes them away from home, and it's just too much of a burden and expense for them to return home to vote. You know, and
I know.
we would like to see the law amended whereby these people would at least have an opportunity to cast an absentee ballot.
I think a person that has the best interest of Mississippi at heart, and I don't know a person in Mississippi that does not. And I know that it's too restricted at the present time, and certainly some qualifications should be made. Now, to what extent, Claude? Be honest, there may be some restrictions. I don't know, for example, a man's living in New York and has lived there, say, for the last 10 years.
And he shouldn't vote.
He shouldn't be able to tell the rest of us how we should do here in Mississippi. Now,
he ought to have a permanent residence and would be commuting back and forth.
That's
or
right.
something
Now,
like
something
that.
like
At least
this.
have a family there. You know?
And there's a lot of time our young people going out and working for the summer, and I believe in our young people. In every speech I've made, I've told them, and I believe, and of course, we know less than 3% in this room.
Yeah.
We know less than 3% of the young people today give mine and your children bad names.
Mm-hmm.
Less than 3%. And this is the reason why I really believe that, gosh, when I come along, I remember going across my neighbor's watermelon patch at night and grabbing watermelon too. And I'm not proud of it, but at the same time I'm saying that you know, some of us might not have been just as good as some of these we want to condemn too, you know. And basically our people, our young people, 97% and better are good, and you know, you just can't always beat that. You get 97% of anything. If I could work the stock market, you know, I'd be the richest man in the world.
I can notice a man near me's got in his store said, when we start to criticize the younger generation, I'm afraid we forgot who raised it.
Yeah, there you go. That's right. You forgot who raised it. That's right. Then go ahead.
Let's get out before we run out of tape. The constitutional amendment that recently adopted by the Congress, Cliff, on lowering the voting age to 18 has been ratified by about half of the states already, and without a doubt it'll be coming up in January over here.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be in favor of it?
Well, you hadn't been listening to my speeches. I got some criticism, as you know, for saying, but I'd have to say that the way I feel, in my own heart, I'd still leave it to the people. But in my heart, that a man that goes to Vietnam, and I have a cousin that's flying me around this summer, you know, is a major in the Army, been twice to Vietnam. He's able to vote, an 18-year-old is able to go be killed and get killed. A man that's able to vote for United States President that's running our country, and we got a great country, realize we have some faults, and can vote for a congressman, and yet can't vote for a constable or JP, is something wrong. Either the national level is wrong or Mississippi is wrong.
Right.
And this is the reason why I feel that and we know generally that that just because that young people got a so-called a bad name, they're not bad. And we know that from studies that they vote more conservative than some of us in this room really vote, you know, really. So really, I mean, I can't see anything wrong with 18-year-old voting. And I know that you've heard in certain areas where I've been criticized for saying this, but I still got to tell them where I feel in my heart. And that's the reason I'm telling you tonight. And I know that and I'm not coming down here to get votes. I want your help and I want your votes, certainly. And I'm coming for your help and votes, certainly. But I'm not coming down here to tell you something that I don't believe in my heart. You remember on the coast, first thing they asked me down there, and the only thing they were concerned about in a certain area was legalized gambling. And of course, naturally, you know, all I had to do was soft pedal it, and I could soft pedal it if I wanted to. But I had to tell them where I felt in my heart, and I guarantee you, there's got a bunch of them down there working right tonight, and going to be working for them, and big money's going to be against them. But I cannot tell the people in South Mississippi what I can't tell them in Northern Mississippi, and I can't tell them in my church where I'm Sunday school superintendent. I cannot. I've got to tell them where I feel in my heart. I do believe in the people running the government. If the people in Mississippi wanted to turn the state over to gamblers, if that's all the people wanted, that I know the people not that way, so ain't no sense in me talking. But I'm just saying that I had to tell them the truth, like I've tried to tell you tonight, Claude. I know some of the things that I've said might not have been just exactly what you wanted, but I've tried to tell you where I feel in my heart.
Well, you hadn't done bad, friend. You hadn't done bad. Getting down to the next question, you got any legislation you're interested in that we haven't talked about?
Yes, I'm sure there's a lot we haven't talked about that I'm interested in, because I know there's a lot of other things in the state of Mississippi.
Specific thing that you're going to try to do?
Well, you know, I really came for a kind of question and answer. I didn't think about, you know.
Well, but we got that down there, give you an opportunity. You got anything that you want to promote on that we haven't covered? You know?
I want to promote the best interest of all the people in the state of Mississippi that has the best interest of the state of Mississippi at heart. I want us to work together as a Mississippian. I feel that it's time to quit criticizing and condemning, quit trying to be sectionalized, quit trying to be divided. Let's work together. We got a good state. We got some bad things. And let's throw away the bad things and use our good things, quit condemning our state and working as a whole. And this is what I'm going to be as a mediator, trying to work as a whole. I remember one of our governors, you remember, ex-governor, sitting one desk between me, and he said that he told several people, and the people in the legislature when I was there, that if he had a bill to pass in the legislature, he would get Cliff Finch to handle it, and one of the ex-governors. I thought that was a compliment, because I tried to get along and work with everybody. I know that if we get out here and try to do everything against management, it's not gonna stand. And if management get out here and do everything against you, that's not right. And I think if we work together, we can, it's a solution somewhere between the extremes on anything, and this is what I want to do.
Well, you won't find any problem dealing with us.
I never have.
You'll be in agreement with us, I think.
I never have.
You'll have more problems about some other people than you will us now. No.
You got the main question coming up. Oh, I see,
Yeah,
I see.
we got a couple of more questions, yes, that's not on here. One of them, of course,
My
is-
friend would want to put me on the spot.
No, we're not gonna put you on the spot all that much, but as,
Like it all that
as
much.
presiding officer of the Senate, one of your primary duties is appointing committees. It'll be handling legislation. I
I mean,
touched on it
that's
briefly
one.
there a while ago.
I guarantee you
But
one of the
you-
most important things for the state of Mississippi is
Right,
those committees.
now, you know, we've been playing with stacked committees in the House for a long time. We're not in too bad a shape in the Senate, but the question I want to pose to you is, when you get ready to appoint your committees, would you be willing to confer with a representative of organized labor, with myself or somebody else?
I'm willing, and I will.
Review those committee assignments with us. We're not asking you to stack them in our favor. We'd just like to review who you have in mind, and say the Labor Committee, of course, the Judiciary Committee will have all lawyers on it anyhow. We would like to know who you got in mind for chairman of these committees, you know.
Claude, I'm willing and I want, and I honestly solicit the advice and consideration of all the people. That would include you, the management, the man that's not represented by a union. I will want to consider everybody's advice. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, good
It
enough.
does. I mean, again,
Yeah.
I'm not for any particular group. I'm for the working man. I'm for the people. And I want our state to grow, and I know the way that we grow is work together.
Well, now,
And I
you've been
know
in the
it-
House, and you know what the situation's been in the House for years, with the Speaker having the power to appoint the committees, and you know, I don't have to tell you that.
And I'm not here to
the
condemn
old-
anybody,
that
and
the
I'm not
old
gonna
man-
say
Old
that.
man Sellers stacked committees, he stacked them every time around, and old man Junkin is doing the same thing. And we're not gonna get you involved in the speech you're speaking.
You're right.
We're gonna work
You-
on that one.
Absolutely.
But we don't want to get ourselves in this position in the Senate, you see. Now, we're not asking you to give us veto power or anything like this. We'd like to sit down with you before you make the final choice on some of these people.
Tape's running close.
All right, the big
Let
question.
me say this in relation to that. Oh, go ahead.
Well, the next question,
Question
of
gets
course,
you.
is, do you want organized labor support in the election?
I want the support of all people throughout the state of Mississippi. That means every person in the state. I don't care about a label. I hate to hear private and public school. I'm not for labels in a sense. I want everybody's support, and you know, and the only way that we can be elected is getting everybody's support.
Well, but here's the reason I ask you the question now. If the Mississippi FFL-CIO endorses you, we have a procedure that we have to follow. Well, this is the beginning of that procedure. This committee will make a report to our executive board, and that board then will make a report to another larger committee, and then that will make a report to a full convention. And when that convention acts and adopts our recommendations, then we're on the line then to support the candidate, you know. And then, of course, when the press gets a hold of it, and the anti-labor element here in the state tees off on you because you have the support of organized labor, then what is your position going to be?
You know that there's a certain element of people that don't know any better. They think that the organized labor is out to beat everybody and everything, and you know this, Claude, and I'm not telling you anything, and I'm being honest about it. And realizing that it's not a person in here, what I want to say a moment ago, it's not a person in here that doesn't know how I feel. And every person in here knows where I feel in my heart, and I know you know this, because I don't mind looking you in the eye and the whole world and tell you how I feel. I cannot be your lieutenant governor if we don't get all the people's support. And I don't want to be altogether labor. You don't want me to be that way. If I came down here to be altogether labor, I believe you'd run me out that door. And I'm not altogether management. I'm not altogether, but I want to represent all of us together. And I think that you know, and I know you know how I feel in my heart about the people in Mississippi. And I realize if we got out, Claude, and if you came out, and this was done in one election, and I remember it came out on the 11th hour, and then my opponent came to, first time I ran for district attorney, and my friend remember this, he came on his courthouse steps, and he got on the steps and he said that labor was running, Cliff, because everybody knows how I feel about the working man. He said, and he was grasping for straws, and he said that where everybody was listening, all his friends, and this was in his hometown, his home community, and he said labor brought Cliff out, and labor was running, organized labor. And that's where they were having a little trouble there in one of the local factories. And I got on the platform and I told them, if y'all believe what my friend just told you, that I was up here just running as organized labor, y'all vote for my friend. But if you believe that Cliff Finch is up here to represent the people, then on August the 3rd, you walk down the aisles and show what you really believe in your heart. And we carried every precinct, including his. And this is what I'm saying is that you know on the 11th hour in that same election, somebody else came out in the gubernatorial race, and it came, you know, that organized labor was backing him all the way in certain areas that hurt. I want everybody's help, but I do not know how to handle this situation. I'd like for y'all's advice, tell me how to handle it.
Let me ask a question.
If you want a man elected to help the people, I know how I feel in my heart, and I know that I'm going to be representing the people. But if you want a man up there just
Let me make a statement and ask a question.
Okay, great.
Organized labor, Mississippi FLCIO in Mississippi, does not want anything except a fair shake.
You're going to get a fair shake. Everybody's going to get a
Now,
fair shake.
my question is, do you want the open, above-board endorsement of the Mississippi FLCIO made public in your...
Let me ask you, do you want me to be your lieutenant governor if I'm going to represent all the people and you get a fair shake? If you do you think it would be advantageous, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, sir, but I'm asking you for advice. Do you think it's advantageous to openly endorse, or would it be proper and honest to the people? Now, I wouldn't, if one of you in here did anything dishonest to your people, I wouldn't want to be sitting in this room. But would it be better for the people to let other people know how I stand than have an open endorsement?
Let me ask you a question.
He didn't answer me.
Yeah,
Well,
I want him to hold this for just a minute. But I want to ask Cliff.
I like him, I want to find
As a former member of minutes ago about what we wanted to do in this particular phase of the meeting, we want to get a report from each of the central body areas about your particular situation in the contest of the legislature, both the House and the Senate. The reason we want this information, we want to make a determination about what we need to do now to help you. I've already explained to you the importance of the Speaker's position in the legislature, and we're making an all-out effort at this time around to elect people that in turn will elect a decent Speaker. The Representative Milton Case from Madison County told me this morning he'd try to be here as soon as he could around 2:30. I told him I thought we ought to be through with the other part of the meeting by that time. But he had a meeting at 1 o'clock up here at the Capitol, and apparently he's got tied down and spending more time than he thought. I wanted him to be over here to hear you and what you got going on, and then in turn, perhaps he could advise us about some situations he might know that we don't. Now, we're going to go ahead and start without him because some of you have got other meetings to attend that you need to be in. So we're going to ask Brother Clark first for Meridian, since the IBEW thing, he needs to get to it. Now, Brother Clark has already filed with me yesterday a report on the Meridian Central Labor Union. But Brother Clark, for the benefit of the rest of them here, I wish you'd tell them what you've done and where you are at this particular time with your legislative situations over there. You wanna come up here? Maybe we'll pick it up a little easier. Would you come up here and speak with the mic and pick it up? Clark, president of the Meridian Central Labor Council, in case some of you don't know him. He's also chairman of the Entertainment Committee.
Last one I got into it didn't do so good. We went ahead and Meridian got all of our candidates for the legislature and the Senate, interviewed the ones that they didn't already know a whole lot about. And ones, say for instance, like Mrs. White there, who's always treated us good, and Claude says we'll call him up and talk to him every time something comes up. So we didn't talk to her, and we did talk to the ones that the committee didn't know or didn't feel like that they knew enough about them. So we got them lined up, and we've come out for the first post one there in Meridian. We've got an incumbent there who's a millionaire running for re-election for the Senate. We got another fellow who I don't reckon got a dime, but nevertheless, the incompetence questionnaire, when we got through reading it, we couldn't tell what he really said. It's kind of like Mr. Finch's was. So we didn't know exactly what he had said he'd do, and everything that he did say, he beat around the bush with it. So we didn't know it this last year, particularly on several of the key issues, that we didn't know where his vote lie, even if the thing would come up. And we went ahead and endorsed a fellow that's been in the state legislature over there, Thelma Stevens, and we endorsed him to run against Fred Rogers, who's a millionaire, and he's got an uphill battle. We know that. We don't know what his chances is of winning or anything else, but we think we can all get behind him, convince enough voters. We might get him to run a good race anyhow. Stevens voted, I guess, didn't about 100% for us in the legislature when he was in there. He didn't intend to run for this post. He was going to run for the one that was done away with. They took one post away from us over there in this redistricting, and he was going to run for that. The fellow was Senator Joe Mosby. He quit on it, so they took the post away anyhow after he done quit, so it didn't really make no difference. So then he wound up run against Fred Rogers. And then the other race, Mrs. White, who was incompetent, we didn't have no fuss at all with her. She treated us mighty good on all of her time over here in the legislature and then into the Senate when she went into the Senate. So we didn't have anything against her. And every candidate we interviewed and on the questionnaires, they all said, Claude, that they would confer with representatives of labor on this Speaker of the House deal. So every one of them's committed on the thing, even the ones we didn't endorse, they committed. So
Yeah, good.
Get down to the House race. We got kind of in a situation over there. We got John Perkins, who's a Meridian Star over there, editorial man, and he had post done away with. He picked Ed Jolly to run against, who was the vice president of the Central Labor Council. Won't put him in the legislature, and he's a union man, and he was running against Ed. He picked Ed to run against in there because he figured he'd be the easiest man to beat. So again, we want to see if we can convince him that we have still got a little support over there, and we're going to try to get Ed back in the job. I think if Perkins' questionnaire wasn't too bad, we had one that we wanted to see him run against, but he wouldn't do it. He was scared of her, and that was Betty Jane Long. And we couldn't get him to run against her, and he went ahead and run against Ed, so it looked like think we could support them against her, but not against Ed. In other words, we could get part of the things we wanted, but we couldn't depend on the vote if it got down to it. So, in the other race over there, we had another incumbent, Dan Johnson, who's a school teacher. His record has been good in the legislature. We got in a little predicament over there with a union member that's running against him, and the union member answered his questionnaire just exactly the way both of them did, 100% as far as yes all the way through. And so we couldn't make up our mind what to do on that situation, so we're just gonna let that, when they do the mail out thing, we're just gonna have no recommendations on that one. Kind of somehow was under the impression that if the company does good, you ought to stay with him, but under them situations, we kind of had a split in our group over there, and we didn't know exactly, wasn't too much we could do, just let the thing ride. The other one, let's see, that's all.
McDade.
Yeah. The other one is Helen McDade from the cab up there, and she's been running in a rural area. She come down there and appeared before the whole group down there, and she told us, she said, I don't care who knows. She said, I'm gonna get 98% of the vote in Kemper County anyway. And she said, I don't care who knows that organized labor backed me. We asked her point blank, and she thought it would hurt her too much in Kemper County, and we called her attention to it, and she said she didn't care. She wasn't worried about the vote in Kemper County. She wanted our help in Lauderdale County. That was one that she had to be concerned with. So we went on record endorsing her. So in the Senate, we come out with, like I said a while ago, Bertie Lee White and Thelma Stevens. If any of y'all got any connections in Kemper County and Lauderdale County, might help us out with them. And in the House, we come out with Ed Jolly and Helen Day, of course, Betty Jane Long, no opposition, and the other two just be a toss-up of whoever they like, I guess, at best, or else listen to their speeches and make up their mind from there. But this Helen McDade, she says that she'll even get up in her campaign speeches and say that organized labor supporting her if they would. That she wasn't scared of it at all, that she wanted it, she was glad to get it. She's a practicing attorney, I think, up in Kemper County, so that was our worst worry. We didn't know exactly what we was gonna come out with, but when she got down there, she done a darn good job of settling everybody down there. There wasn't no question about it. Mayor White's opposition for the Senate was insurance man, and we figured we done had too many insurance men over there with Sonny Montgomery, and they got too many laws, and same thing, against Helen McDade. She's running against an insurance man. Really don't see no problem at all with Mayor White. I think she'll sail in. And it's going to be a toss-up, though, between the time the Emergency Star gets through with us on Ed Jolly and John Perkins. But we feel like that we can get Helen McDade back in the office. And there's one thing that I'd like to add what y'all were talking to a while ago about in these central labor councils. You need to be real careful because Finch, he was coming through Meridian to make a little whirlwind stop through there, and he got some of his campaign people down there to get in touch with me, wanted to meet him at the airport and this and that and the other, so I just let that ride just like I didn't get the message, you know. And then he wasn't satisfied with that. When he did come to town, he would have to get me on the phone, and I explained to him the procedure. So you're going to have to be careful on these people like that. They're going to try to undermine. They don't start at their method of selecting. They want to start down at the bottom and see what they could do with it. So y'all all need to kind of keep your eyes open in your local unions too, because if you don't watch, you'll mess around. Some of them get committed and things like that, and then you run into real problems. You need to express that very clearly to them, that our method of selecting them and explain it to them. And I think if we get the point across to them, Paul, we won't have too much problem with it.
Good.
That's that already.
Thank you, Brother Clark. I've arrived. Mr. Case, would you stand up? Let me introduce you to the people. This is the future Speaker of the House, we hope, Representative Milton Case. I suggest you remove your coat right now. We're all about to burn out in here. There's something wrong with the cooling system. Milton, I have advised everybody, and the people that's in this room here now, primarily the officers of our Central Labor Councils throughout the state. And we're trying at this point to get a report from each area. We want to find out where we are, what kind of candidates we got, and how many of them are willing to either commit themselves to you or be uncommitted, not get themselves committed, especially the junkie. You see, we wanted you here to meet our people, and number one, to hear their reports of what we got going on out in the field, and number two, there might be something about some of these individual candidates, some of these particular situations that you can advise us on. Now, would you like to have a chance to have a word to say before we continue?
Yes, without imposing myself on you, I did not come prepared to say anything, except I do want to call this to your attention. Now, all of you, I'm sure, in this room have lived in Mississippi a long period of time. Some of you, like myself, was born here. I practice law in Kent, and I intend to live here until the day I die, making my home. And because I intend to live here, I'd like to do my part to make it the kind of place that I'm proud of. I'd like to see our state something other than the 50th state every time it's spoken and compared to the other states in this union. The key to doing this lies with the people of our state. It lies also in the legislature that is responsive to the people of our state. Now, we historically have always listened to the governors make their campaign speeches, stood out in the sun and heard these nice platforms. Then we've all enthusiastically voted for him and elected a governor. Then we've seen him take office and do nothing when he was in office. Now, I'll grant you a lot of times he's to blame by the fact that he had no enthusiasm when he went into office. He had no intent of carrying into purpose the platforms that he put before the people. But then, too, a lot of the blame has been the fact that the legislature has not really been able to respond to the wishes of the people of the state. Individual members of the legislature who have been dedicated when they were elected, who had every intention to carry out the purposes for which the people sent them there from their local communities, have found the rules, the mechanics of the operation of the legislature to hamper their most sincere intentions and desires. And they have been unable to do their best in behalf of the people that they represent. Now, this has been going on in the state of Mississippi since I was born. And now, and only now, since I've been living, is there an opportunity to bring it to a halt, to set the direction of government in a new direction, to turn it once again to the point where by attitude and spirit it responds to the needs of the people. It translates government into people. When you talk about government, making laws, you talk about people, the people that it serves, that it's there to serve. This new group will do that. It's your best hope that you've ever had since I've been living, that it will be done in the state of Mississippi. In order for it to be done, the key is in the Speaker's position in the House of Representatives. Without that, there's little hope that anything dynamic, progressive, or new is going to be done in the state of Mississippi. Now, I'll tell you that out of my background in years of service, and I've been there since 1960, ending this 12th year. And I tell you, because I will not defend the system that exists in the Mississippi legislature with reference to the operation of the legislature in serving the needs of our state. And I do not believe in being two-faced about it and telling the people that we're going to do this and we're going to have a progressive state and we're going to move out on a new dynamic direction in government in the state of Mississippi. We're going to utilize the talents of our people. We're going to do this to bring about great economic growth, and then see the legislature thwarted in its efforts to do it. And the system that exists there with reference to the authority in one man to control the life and destiny of legislation cannot be defended in the democratic process, and I will not defend it. Now I call on you and you because it gets down to when you talk to the matter of the speaker's position, that biblical scripture that you talk about when you say we wage war against principalities and powers. Well, you're talking about it when you talk about that speaker's position. You're waging a war against principalities and powers when you get there. And the only hope we have to upset the situation is in the people back home. They have never expressed to their elected representatives any interest in the speaker's position. Most legislators go to the Capitol in Jackson without having a firm understanding about what the scope of the authority of the speaker is and how it's going to affect ultimately what the legislature does or does not do. Now is the time for the people in the state of Mississippi to make each member of the House who's running, who's before you right now, aware of exactly what his responsibilities must be with reference to the speaker's position if he is going to be able at all to be accountable to you for what he's telling you he's going to be able to do when he gets elected. Now, with your help and the help of many others, we can do it. Without it on the local level, we cannot do it. And I appreciate very much the chance you gave me to come this afternoon to be here and to be a part of it. And I think if you'll take an interest in this, and if you'll become a part of it, then your children, your grandchildren, and future generations will praise the day that you met here and threw yourself behind this. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good, Milton. This is a report that will be presented tomorrow to our convention, and we make reference to the importance of the speaker's position. I'd like to give you a copy of this. It's got a couple of corrections in it. That'll be presented to the convention tomorrow, and of course you're going to be our featured speaker. We'll cut down on speakers this time. It's going to strictly be a business session, but we wanted our people to meet the man that we think ought to be Speaker of the House, and we in turn want him to know what we're trying to do to correct the situation. Now, we've already got a report from Meridian and Brother Clark, and he's already advised us, Milton, about the fact that everybody they've interviewed, including the ones they're not endorsing, have agreed not to make any commitments in the speaker's race until they've consulted with representatives of organized labor. That includes Helen McDade, Ed Jolly, Dan Johnson, and I believe they got 3/4 House seats over there. So that takes care of them reading. Now let's start at the northern end of the state with Corinth. Brother Caldwell, are you ready to give us a report up in that section? See, Milton, this is the first time organized labor has ever become interested in this thing, and there's going to be a few things different what they've been in the past, my friend. You can be assured of that. This is Brother Caldwell, president of the Corinth Central Body.
I'm sorry I haven't got a full report on, we've got a screening committee set up. We also, we invited the senators, is running in this race, senator race at Corinth, at our Central Lady Body, and of course Senator Smith showed up, but the other one did not show up. And he gave a good report on what I mean. He gave a good speech, and he's not ashamed of labor, and he's behind it 100%. I'm sorry we haven't. Our legislature will be up Tuesday. We've got a meeting scheduled Tuesday, so I can't give a report on that till after this. But that's about all that I have. We are in process. We got our screening committee and all set up. So Tuesday we will have a legislature to speak to us, to our central lady. We are getting questionnaires out, and we got most of them out.
Good.
So I'm sorry that I haven't got a full
Well, this is
report.
understandable. There's several other people in the same position. You know, everybody got caught without enough time, you know, when the court made its decision. That includes us, so we haven't, all of us, go through a lot of inconvenience. But what I want to know from you in the House races you have, W.A. Stevens is a good incumbent. Do you anticipate any problems in getting him reelected?
Well, I don't know. In other words, the left screening committee, but it sounds real good. I mean, if he's doing a good job, that's what we want.
Right.
We want,
Him and I consider him and Senator Smith being two of the most outstanding people we have down here. Now, W.A. Stevens, benefit of some of you that don't know, is a member of the Amalgamated Clothing Workers Union himself. And he's been of a tremendous help to me as a member of the legislature. He fills me in quite often on things that I can't be there. And of course, W.A. was among the group that I told you about, that we had a series of meetings with, and they decided that Milton Case was the man that they could best support for Speaker. He was in on this. Now, what we want to know is what can we do to help you?
Well, in other words, I would like for you to encourage Brother Stevens to attend our meetings or come down there.
W.A. Stevens?
Because he hasn't been there for some time.
All right, I'll call him up. I'm
So
sure
be
he'll
sure to get
I'm
there.
sure he'll be down there meeting with you.
Let him let the working people know that he wants their support.
Right.
100%.
He's gonna have to have it. What about your other contest? You got, let's see, what's the other guy's name? The desk mate of W.A.
Clyde Burns.
Yeah.
Well, that is unpredictable too.
He's
And-
got it
and
on
that's
the phone.
something I would like to know. I'd like to get the details. I'm sorry I haven't got them, but I
Yeah.
would like to get them from you on what kind of job he's doing. What we.
Burns usually votes all right, doesn't he, Milton? Clyde? Clyde should go with us in the speaker's race, shouldn't he? Well, our suggestions here is, well, we have a good incumbent, unless you've got a problem like Clark outlined, is to go with the incumbent where he's got a good record.
That's right. Where he's got
Right.
a good record, well, I'm sure the local
Right.
will go with
The
it.
main thing, though, that we want right now is we want the people we're supporting to either commit themselves to Milton Case or not commit themselves to anybody
That's
before they
exactly
consult
right.
with you or with me or somebody.
That's exactly right.
Okay? Good, thank you a lot.
Yes, sir.
Hmm? Yeah, she wanted to mention the fact that we do have a legislative report in the kits covering 1968, 1969, and 1970, the 3 years. We've got some voting records published from the journal itself. There'd be no question about how they voted because we simply reproduced pages out of the journal, Milton. So that's in your kits, and that's put there for your use in grading and studying candidates. All right, let's get to North Delta CLU next. Brother Hitchcock, you got a whole slew of counties under your wing up there, and I understand you set up subcommittees to interview candidates in the various counties. Is that correct? You want to come up here?
He would do that. That's all about everybody else's bad luck. I had no air conditioning on my car today, so I got into something comfortable to make the trip in. Rolled all of my glasses down, went through a check-in. They was cleaning my room up, so give them about 20 minutes. Everybody done started in the building, so I came right on over just like I was.
Good thing you
But-
got invited to this.
Anyway, I know all of you understand shop language. We're just in a hell of a mess up there. Let's put it just like it is. And I'm speaking of Coahoma, Quitman, and Tunica County at this time. I'm going to let some other people report on the other area because I hadn't even had a report on it myself since we started this, for that matter. Of course, you know, we have in the legislative down here now, Mr. Neblett. All of you that don't know him personally have heard of him. And Mr. Malcolm Mabry, and Mr. Williams. Kenneth Williams. And we don't even have anyone running against Williams or Mabry. Now, we do have a man running against Neblett. I know him, but I hadn't had a chance to sit down and talk to him yet. I did call him on the phone a few nights ago and asked him if we got a screening committee set up, if he would like to sit down and talk to us. And he said he would like very much to talk to us. Actually, what has happened in my area there, the union people more or less died down for the past 4 years. And I have been trying for about 6 months to get them back together, get them started working. So I finally got them together last Wednesday night, and I believe that all of our union people in that area are ready to go now, but we had a little static in the meeting, and I'm going to spell it out just like it is, and maybe some of you people here that that's involved with that particular group can help us out. CWA, we asked the question if they would like to elect a screening committee and start interviewing candidates. So it looked like one of CWA's men came in there just to blow the whole thing up. He got up right quick and said he suggested that we not set a screening committee up. So what we're going to do now is go back, and if we get the rest of the unions together, if they don't want to work with us, they'll just have to go their route. And I think that we will have that going. That's about all that I have to report, because some of the other people here from North Delta Central Labor Council is more familiar, and I imagine they have already done some screening in the other areas. This Labor Council covers 12 counties. If you, I hope you can understand why I say that I hadn't been able to, you know, stay up to date on all the counties there.
Can I ask a question?
Let's,
All right.
I'm from CWA. I'd like for you to tell it like it is. I'd like for you to give us the name of this gentleman.
I'll tell you, George Powell is the president up there. Now,
Was George there?
yeah, he was there, but I'll tell you what it looks to me like. Now, don't say that this is true. I think D.A. Smith is running the union, and he is a fanatic. He wants to support Jimmy Swan, so I think that's all I would have to say.
okay.
But I think D.A. Smith is the man that's...
Well, thank you, Brother Hitchcock. We realize the magnitude of your job, and of course we are happy to know that you are getting ready to get them together up there, and of course we all know that you got some lives of people that need to be replaced, right, Milton? Would you like to comment on that any? Anytime you feel like you want to comment on any of these situations, you got it. Yeah. Well, anyhow, you'll agree with us that Kenneth Williams, Mr. Neblett, and the other gentleman ought to be replaced. The speaker's in agreement that they need to be replaced, Brother Hitchcock. Now, who you want to give us a rundown on some of the other counties? Amy Hollowell?
Lafayette and Calvin.
All right. Of course, here's the situation we've confronted with in some of these situations. We've got part of a Central Labor Union district where they overlap. So what we'll have to do here is the two central bodies will have to get together and set them up a subcommittee to deal with places like, well, Marshall. The good example is Marshall and DeSoto counties. Of course, I don't believe they're in anybody's jurisdiction, are they? DeSoto? Marshall is not, right?
Right.
Okay, so anyhow, that's the kind of situation we have to deal with. Okay, Amy.
Well, I don't have much.
You just getting started?
Yeah, I pulled blank. I can't get anyone to help me on to screen the candidates, so otherwise I couldn't invite them, and so I sent them the questionnaires, and I have gotten an answer back from one of the representatives in one of the Senate. And so Tommy told us to be sure and ask them point blank, would they support Milton Case for Speaker of the House? So I wrote that down at the bottom of the page, and so this representative from Bruce, Billy Gibson, I believe is his name, he said he did not know Mr. Case, but he would consider him along with the other candidates for Speaker of the House. But I haven't had time to study since I just got the letter yesterday from them.
Yeah.
And so I haven't had time to study them, but Tom's always put me in a position where I can't do anything and don't know what I'm doing. And so I've never done this before, and when I stayed on the phone all last week when I come in from work and trying to get people to say they would help me, screen the candidates, and I called CWA there in Oxford, and 2 weeks, and, the other man said he'd gotten too old and turned it over to someone else, and he gave me that name, and I called him, and so, and he said, and that night, he had gone to the meeting that night, and so I told his wife I'd call the next afternoon. I told her what I was wanting, and, so she, said that he would be home the next afternoon about 4:30, so when I got in from work, I called, and so he wasn't, he sort of hedged, you know, he didn't want to have anything to do with it, and I couldn't get it over to him that, we were just wanting to screen the candidates, but, and he got into something, he said he referred me to, I believe it's an Upjohn with the Carpenters International or something, I believe was his name, Upjohn or something. But anyway, I tried to tell him that he could tell me all about what to do and everything. I told him I knew what to do, I was wanting somebody to help me, see. And, but, that's the kind of answers I got, just switching me from, and so I said, I'm like Linda now, just to hell with them, I'll do the best I can without them, so,
There you are,
I sent,
there you are, that's the way to do it,
the
do it yourself.
questions in, and so far I've gotten 2 of them back, so maybe next week, I asked them would they please answer them and get them back by the 24th, but, so I got 2 of them back by the 24th, so. That, other way, otherwise I don't know what I'm gonna.
Well, we realize, of course, that, you know, what some of the problems are, and of course you're gonna have to do like we have to do down here once in a while. The hell with it, just do it yourself, you know, that's about the way we have to do it sometime. Now, I think several of you might possibly, if you haven't mailed out your questionnaires because of the shortness of time, you might ought to mail them. Now, I know George Johnson, with this mess he's got here, he's got one heck of a job with this situation here in the Hinds County area. But it might, we got the names and addresses of all the qualified candidates. If you want to think about mailing it to them and ask them to mail them back to you and try to set up instead of setting up these personal interviews, this might be the best way of doing it for some of them. I know that the job's easy in some areas. Some of you have got more help than some. But we've just got to get this job done. Don't hesitate to call the state office. Anytime you need some help out of town like myself. Hopefully, we're going to get a couple of more staff people working this election this time to give you a hand. All right. Yalabushi and Pinola. You got anything in encouraging news for us? Ma'am? Well, I guess it is if you don't just want to come front. Yeah.
My God, now you make something like me walk up there and look.
All right, come on up here. Come on up here. Yeah, by all means, we want you up here.
There is a difference.
Well, we had the same problem there, Yellowbush and Panola counties pressed for time, so I got drafted into being the chairman. We did get a committee together from the local there at Water Valley, like 643. And I mailed the questionnaires out, and I received one answer. It's from Terry Peoples in Congress for the House of Representatives. And that's about all I can say now until we receive some more letters and then have an evaluation report together with our committee and determine.
Good. Well, as people, how does he stack up on the speaker's thing? Now, y'all did a magnificent job up there in this special election. This guy ought to do it. Well, it's in the questionnaire, though, about committing, not committing himself. It's one of the questions on the questionnaire. Of all the people I can think of, if there's anybody over there that ought to go with us, it's Mr. Peoples because of the work y'all done for him.
He wouldn't be there.
I just got it on the paper mail up.
Yeah.
Come down today.
Well, anyhow, he's been a good man, and I hope, has he got opposition?
Yes, he has. He has two. One's in Thomas from Panola County, from Batesville.
Yeah.
That was before his redistricting.
Who is that? Can you
Finney.
Finney? Well, there ain't no comparison then, too, between Peoples and Finney. Yeah. Okay, thank you a lot, Darla. Anybody else from that same CLU?
Maybe, Shepard from Montgomery and Grenada.
Yeah, you need to talk to Clayton Moss while, hey, you see that fellow with the curly hair?
Wave your hand, Clayton, let her know who you are.
Guy with the glasses, do you know him?
See you later.
He's somebody you need to talk to. He's got a lot of people up there. All right, does that get North Delta, Hitchcock?
Maggie Shepherd.
Maggie
Grenada
Shepherd?
and Montgomery.
Grenada and Montgomery. It's pretty cool air down here, if I lie down on that floor.
We did get our screening committee together. We called, got in touch with most of our candidates. We had two that we couldn't get in contact with. I guess we picked sort of a bad time for our candidates to come. It seemed like they were all busy, had already made other plans. But, we did have two to show up, and, they did give favorable answers to our questions. So what we decided to do, is have another chance at it, and by the way, one of the candidates that failed to come called me on the telephone and begged for another chance. He begged us to give him one more chance, that he would like to meet our people, he would like to give them his views on things, and it did make me feel much better. So I told him that we would have another meeting and give them all one more chance to come.
Good.
So that's about our report.
Well, is there anything that we need to do out of the state office to help you right now? I guess what we will do, of course, is do a statewide mailing about our convention, and then we'll also try to work out some way of doing a mailing for your recommendations back to the membership. I think I'm saying this for everybody's benefit, but this is what our plans are. So we will, we've spent a lot of time, and Amy now with us getting our names and addresses up to date. We're in pretty good shape now when it comes to doing mailing. So y'all can all keep this in mind. This is something that we will be doing out of the state.
We have got a man in our representative office that we would like to get out. When we had our screening committee before, he'd taken over another man's term to finish out, and he just don't want any part of us, so we need to try to give him the
Need
shove.
to get him out of there, right. Right. Okay, does that take care of North Delta now?
Sure.
See, we've got Meridian. Let's get Tupelo next. Who's going to report for Tupelo?
Right here. I'm Jimmy Madigan from Tupelo Central Labor. I don't live at Tupelo. I'm just the vice president, and president couldn't make it. And we got our reports just about 2 days, I believe, before we had our last Central Labor meeting. And we are in the process of mailing them out. We're going to mail them, I reckon, to all representatives and senators, even the ones running Pontotoc County.
Right.
We're trying to find out how our seats are set up there on our Senate. I think maybe Pontotoc is with Lafayette and Union. I don't know.
Hey, we got the maps here. Where's the map on the senatorial district? Get one of them out.
We didn't have that or none of
Have you seen the map of outlining the?
You got it.
It's in your kit. There's a map.
The House apportionment and the Senate.
The maps is showing you what counties and what districts in your kit. So you check that. Okay. All right. Good.
We're in the process of mailing them all out and getting them back in. We will do it at the next meeting. I understand we're gonna have to set up a special meeting to get it done before election time. Because we got these things in just about 2 days, I believe, before our last Central Labor meeting. He'll verify that. We didn't have time to get it all. We got the screening committee set up.
Good. Good. Well, you do have some pretty good House members up there.
I'd like to say one thing.
All right.
I've talked to Jerry Wellborn, and I've talked to Cotton Webb.
Yeah.
And I think both of them will go with us. But
Sure they will.
Butch Lambert, now I can't speak for him. I don't know. I can't get a commitment out of Butch.
Can't on the speakers list?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. You get that. Yeah. All right, let's see. That's got Tupelo, Columbus. How about Columbus? Who's going to report for Columbus? You'll have to.
Oh, we got you where we wanted you, dog.
I'm another one of them vice presidents that the president played off with. Now, Wayman Goodman, I understand there's a death that was involved. The reason he wasn't down in most all I've got to say has already been said. We about as far behind as the state AFL is, and we just mailed ours out, or just in the process of mailing our questionnaires out. We are gonna mail them because we cover 9 counties, and I believe that's right. And we're in the process of getting them all mailed out, and I would like to go, we've got plenty of help now. Some of these other people that don't have any help, well, we could lend you some help just about it. Not bragging on them, but we do have a bunch of people up there that are willing to work, and we'll take a job if you'll give it to them. So we're going to give them all a job, and I'm sure you're going to see some results up there in the near future. I would like to say just a little about one of the Senate races, which involves 3 of the counties there, is has 2 posts in it. 2 senators will be elected. Bergen, I believe, from post 1 is unopposed.
Right.
I understand he's a pretty good fellow anyway. And post 2 we got Hardin, Risch, Jolly, and Cox. Don't know too much about any of them, so any help that we could get on that would be appreciated. We are sending out, as you know, some questionnaires, and we're going to try to contact them too. But I'd like to move to the House of Representatives from Clay County.
Right.
4 years ago, we defeated Thompson McClellan. And I say we, the labor movement in the state of Mississippi, I think, did defeat Thompson McClellan. I know our local there and our central labor body did a whole lot towards defeating him because he was consistent. You'll have to say that much. I always say the best parts about a man first. He was consistent. He always voted consistently against labor. And we beat him so bad that I thought sure he wouldn't even run for dog catcher anymore, but he surprised me. He has came announced for House of Representatives from Clay County. Now, Wendell Carter, the man we elected, was not exactly our choice. I hope he don't get a word of this. But he was so much better than Thompson that we took a chance on him, and he did turn out pretty good. We was looking around, though, looking for somebody to run against him. But, so now we have got to change horses and go with Wendell Carter, and he looks real good. I have to say this. It reminds me of the story about the farmer that lived way back off in this farming community, and he came to the store and to buy supplies, and of course everybody knows everybody else's business in small communities, so they knew that his wife had been sick and been bad sick. So when he came in, he didn't talk like I do. He didn't like to talk like I do. So when he came in, they asked him, said, "How's your wife?" And he said, "Compared to what?" Wendell Carter is a good man compared to Thompson McClellan. I wish anybody that could help us, if you know anybody that don't know the man, I know him personally, Thompson McClellan, and no joke, he's at the bottom of those. But in case you meet somebody that don't know him, just ask them. All I ask them to do is ask somebody that does know him. We are going to get mixed up in this politics. I think in one of the counties in our area, they've gone a little overboard. I think we're trying to look into this and take care of it. I hope we are not planning on going in all the counties way down into the supervisor races. I understand in some of the counties where the supervisors are running county-wide that we are going to talk to the supervisors, because this is another place like the Speaker of the House where supervisor pulls a lot of water, if you'll pardon the expression, in the county. That's about all I have to report. I wasn't prepared to give a report, and I could tell another joke, but that wasn't happening.
Thank you. Well, we're really happy to hear that good report there, Brother Orman. And of course, you're in the same position a lot of other people. You're just gearing up, getting ready. Now, on the lesser positions, this is strictly the business of the central body. If they want to get involved in other elections, that's the thing for them to do. But we don't have anything at all to do with that. All right, let's see. We got Columbus. We got Meridian. How about Greenville? Yes, sir. Compared to Thompson, McClellan, McCarty looks real good, I'll tell you. Brother Grantham with the Greenville Central Labor Council.
Well, like the rest of them, I can only give a partial report on this.
Right.
We do have all of our questionnaires out, and some of them we haven't heard from. At this time, I can make a report on the House seats from Washington and Essequibo County. On post number 1, I'm sorry to say, we don't have but one man out. He's a man that we want to get rid of, and I think all of you will agree with me on that. That's Brother C.B. Newman. We do hope to come up with an independent candidate against Labor. And for post number 2, we have Abraham, Taylor, and Glenn, and I understand now that Mr. Glenn has been disqualified from running. I called up Miss Taylor, talked with her about it, to talk with her. I like to scare her to death. She just wouldn't talk to me. I don't know what she told me, says, I've never heard of your organization. You know where that left me. So therefore we'll go along with Mr. Abraham, who has been, I think, a mighty good friend to organized labor in the past 4 years.
Yeah, he's good, man. What does he say on the speaker? What's his position on the speaker?
He will go.
He will?
He will go. All of my candidates will.
How about Hanan Miller? You heard from him yet?
Hanan, yeah. I talked to Hanan on the phone. I hadn't got his
questionnaire.
He hadn't got his questionnaire back, but I have talked with him on the phone.
What about Sonny Meredith?
Sonny Meredith, I've talked with Sonny on the phone. I hadn't got his questionnaire back. He's unopposed, but I do feel that we can go along with Sonny Meredith. He has been. He
doesn't have any opposition.
He doesn't have any opposition. Yeah.
You need to talk to him about the speakers thing. Tell him if you don't go with us, we'll get an independent man.
We'll talk with him about the speaker when we get back.
Good.
And for post number 4, we have Hanan Miller and Aker. Aker is unknown. He hadn't had any experience in politics before. So,
well, Hanan
has been mighty
Hanan's
nice.
a very good man, and I would strongly urge you to support him.
Well, we're going along with Mr. Miller on this.
Good. How about your senators?
My senators in that district for Humphreys
You've had that everything's been changed.
Washington County.
Yeah. You got McElwain running for re-election, I believe. And,
yeah. We had McElwain running for re-election, and we also have Mohammed, I believe is his name, running for re-election.
An incumbent.
But Mohammed, I talked with him. He filled out a questionnaire. It's one of the good questionnaires I ever read. All of his answers were right.
Well, he might turn out to be all right. We get him in a district where we've got some labor people. Up to this time, we haven't had many people in his district, but I think he would probably come around pretty good. Let's see, you've got Humphreys in Washington in that senatorial district.
Yeah.
Right.
We have Mohammed, Gresham, and Grissom. Right. And neither one of the other 2 candidates wouldn't fill out a questionnaire for me.
Well, that makes your job
So
easy
that
then.
automatically leaves us Mohammed.
Right, good.
For the Senate.
Okay, fine.
And the post number 2, we have McLean and Berry. Like the other candidate, Berry wouldn't fill out a
Well, he must be running as, what, a Republican? He don't show here, huh?
He's Republican.
Maybe that'll come off in November. Right.
So therefore, we'll have to go along with Mr. McLean on this. So that is,
Who's got, is LaFleur County in your district?
yeah, yeah.
Do you, are you mailing questionnaires out to all those people?
I've gone out to them.
Well, for whatever it might be worth, I might advise you that I consider Corbett Patridge as being a very good senator. I don't believe he's got any opposition, has he? Patridge?
I don't think so.
He's, he stays with us real good considering the place he's from.
So, now, if any of you could come up with a good man to run against Brother Newman, I wish you'd,
Yeah.
let me know about him. Claude, Tom, and I talked to everybody that we could trying to get him to run.
Let's put it this way, Brother Gunther, just come up with a man.
Or a woman, you know? Yeah, that's right.
Go back to Curtis and the joke, anything
Yeah.
compared to Newman is first-rate chick.
That's right.
Good. Okay, thank you, Brother Grantham. Good. Of course, Tom and myself spent a lot of time trying to find a candidate to run against Newman. It's kind of hard. I've even went as far as to call Rubel Phillips and see if he can find a Republican to put in there against this bird. And we might have one before it's over with, Brother Grantham. Well, let's see now. Greenville. Got Greenville. Let's get George Johnson from Jackson. Boy, ain't nobody got. I think you got problems. You ought to hear about George Johnson's problem.
I don't know, Claude, hearing them talk about the mailing out these questionnaires to the candidates, we've never done that, had a practice of doing that. Of course, it may be the thing to do when what we do is we mail out a letter to them and then send a questionnaire along with it. If you think it's a good idea, I'd like to know from some of you people, because that's about the only way it looks like I might get my problem solved. Is mail them a letter, let them write me one back. Because we have got a real problem here in Hinds County as far as interviewing candidates. Right now we have committees set up in all the counties which we represent. And committee chairman's name, which we set up a subcommittee in each county which is represented. Some of the counties do not have too many delegates. I would say, when I say too many, they don't have as many delegates as they do in other counties, but they have adequate delegates for interviewing, I think.
Yeah.
In the Hinds County area alone, we have 50-something people to talk to, 57 I think it is, or somewhere thereabout. And we do mail out letters to each individual candidate regardless of his capacity or what he is, and give him the opportunity to talk in a personal interview. But since the problem has come up with the short time I have here, it might be that we're going to have to go to the letter form and just let them answer the question and make an evaluation on that. I would like to ask Mr. Cage here, any of the people in the Hinds County area that is running, which I know he knows all is running, if he has any recommendations in respect to any of the people that's been up there before. And if he does, I'd like to get advise me of that at this time, after the meeting's over. But I think we're in good shape as far as committee goes, but we're in foul shape as far as interviewing goes.
Boy, it's time. You need some time. You like all the rest of us. Of course, y'all know what happened. The courts just got around to the fact that they know now how the election's going to be held. They've had to wait on the court decision before they knew what they could do here in Hinds County. Now, you've got several counties in that district, and there's been a number of people that's contacted my office, even from Simpson County, and I've referred them back to George Johnson and so forth. You know what I mean? We're going to stick with the procedure as far as we're concerned. George, you've got my deepest sympathy, friend. We all sympathize with you, but we do hope that you'll be able to get this information in time for us to get it in the mail, in time for our members to know who we're recommending.
I might tell you, Claude, we're hopeful that we can start interviewing candidates about the 6th of July.
6th of July.
And if try to run it, that was Steve
Want to set up several committees? Good. Okay, thank you, George. Now, we got some gentlemen here from Laurel that I invited up. The Laurel Labor Council has not been too active, but we got some people here from the Masonite local, Bill Devine, the business agent of that local. I asked him to come up. I wanted them to see what we're doing, and I also wanted to find out what is going on in the Jones County area. That would be Wayne, Jasper, Jones, and Smith, and those counties such as that. Would you come up, Bill, and if you got the information you can give us? You've heard the problems of everybody else. You got any down there?
I don't want to tell you all our problems. I don't want to make these people cry. Actually, I know that you people are not interested in local union problems, but in our area, I would say that one of the main reasons why that the Central Labor Union in our district is not any more active than it is due to our conflict with Masonite Corporation back April of 1967 when we got into the illegal strike situation. And we have just now, well, as of January of this year, we negotiated a new contract with Masonite. We've just begun to get our feet on the ground, so to speak. We have had many problems down here. Hopefully, finances has been one of the problems within our local, and hopefully we're going to be able in the near future to get in position within our local union here to where that we can support the Central Labor Union there to a degree to get it active, and two, me not making excuses, I'm not as aware of the problems insofar as politics is concerned that I should be. I have had problems within our local, as I stated, and now I hope, along with some good help, that I can be able to get involved in politics. I know that within our state there is some progress that needs to be made, and I've talked with Claude before on the problems that we've had down there, and just as soon as finances will permit one thing, then we will become active again. And although this being a problem within our local, I know that we can do some good. I have a local union there that's about, I'd say, 1,550 or 1,600 people. So we do have influence with the majority of the people there. I couldn't tell you that I could direct these people to vote the way, the sum total the way that I'd like for them to, but we do have influence with them, and I'm sure that the people that is endorsed here in this convention that we can do some good insofar as votes are concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Plus, I know what you're saying is an absolute fact, and that you do have problems that some of the rest of them don't have, but we also know that you have a rather large membership and that you can have some influence in the people that's elected. And as I've already discussed with you on the phone, when those candidates come to you and seeking your support down there, we would hope that you would get them to take the same kind of a position that everybody else is talking about here, and go down the line with our questions or positions on legislative issues and the speaker's race. You tell old Estes Graham, if he don't commit himself, or at least say that he'll confer with you or me or somebody in organized labor, before he commits himself to speaker, we're going to support that damn Republican down there. You tell him I said that, will you? He'll get the message. All right, let's get Hattiesburg next. Who's going to report for Hattiesburg?
Well, we're having the same problem like all the rest, on time, And of course, I'm another vice president to fill in. And seems like everything just comes to us, vice president. But we have got our committee up, and we have mailed out our questionnaires along with a letter asking the candidates if they would meet with us, and if so, when, at their convenience, that we would meet with them whenever they want to.
Yeah.
And we have talked with Mr. Bobby Garraway, and also I've called Carol Ingram and talked with him, and they both seem real favorable. We had 37 candidates to get in touch with, and we did have the problem of not being able to have the address of these candidates to send questionnaires. We have sent questionnaires out to the ones that we could get the address of. So if y'all have the addresses of the other candidates, we would appreciate.
I think we got that
having them.
information here. We'll see after the meeting and see if we can't come up with it. Okay, thank you, Brother Brewer. Let's see. Hattiesburg. Let's get Harrison County. Who's going to speak for Harrison County? Brother T.L. Nikkes.
We kind of dragging our feet down there, have been. I was elected chairman of the CLU second Thursday this month. We have got our questionnaires out with a letter to it. We'll meet with the candidate at the convenience to screen. And we have 3 polls down there. We don't have any opposition, which I think made us some good legislatures. And we have a lot of new people are running, and I don't know if it's due to the storm or if these guys have got wise and have an unlisted telephone number or what, but we're running them down, we're finding them, and we're getting hold of them, and the phone at home is beginning to ring now. They begin to want their appointments, and we're going to start Monday with our screening. And there's one thing that I would like to recommend that we have used in Harrison County in the past 2 elections, and that's this sample ballot. Now, when we get our candidates lined up, we put out a sample ballot of the one that is recommended statewide and county. And it may amaze you just what effect those things have. Now, in the last election, we put out 18,000 of them in Harrison County, in Hancock, Bull River, and Stone. Now, where you gain there, you have a lot of people that works in these scab plants, but they know better than the Mansion Union. It means a job. Now, those people are waiting for us to lead them. And the only way we can lead them is through this sample ballot. Now, I hate to make this statement, but I've had more people that work in unorganized plants that ask for those ballots and will tell you they're going to take them through the poll and mark their ballot by this sample ballot. And I'm recommending this to all CLUs. And I think you'll find when your next election comes around, those people will be calling you instead of you trying to run them down to get to screen. And Brother Knight wants to know if he can do anything to help. He can oil up his machine because he printed those things for us. We're going to be after him again this time. We got, all told, we got 27 candidates to screen down. And in our letter, we set the deadline at the 10th of July. Those that don't respond, we don't consider. Now, in our last election, I think one of our best senators we have up here, he misplaced his questionnaire, and we screened the guy that was senator at the time. We didn't like him.
have nothing else to do but go with him. And come the second primary, well, we changed horse in the middle of the stream. We went with the guy that misplaced his questionnaire. And this other fellow told me, he says, I'm not concerned. He says, you can't beat me. I said, you shouldn't have said that, because we gonna work with you hard. And we beat him. And we sent a good man up here, I think. And he sent word by me this morning over the phone, tell Claude, get up off and dime now, and let's go.
Yeah.
That's about all I have to report. Usually, one thing, the way I see it, after the election, people, they, we don't have anything to do for 4 years, and then everybody's getting kind of dragged their feet. But then we can do it. It takes a little work. It's hard work. But we can get out and get the right people up here. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, T.L. Thank you. We know what you can do down there, friend. We're just happy to see you and Billy Williams get back in the Hornets again, you see. I have got several calls from down Eldon Bowling. I told you about that. He's very interested in getting with you. And then Jerry O'Keefe called me about that son of his that's running. And they are very interested in what you can do down there. They all realize and they want that support. Let's go to Jackson County. Who's going to make the report for Jackson County? Anybody here prepared to make a report? I don't know what happened to Clark. He was here this morning. Now, he has given me a report of sorts. I was down at the CLU meeting last Monday night, I believe it was, wasn't it, Robbie? And you had several good candidates appearing, and we got one candidate here in the meeting today among that group. And I've got a pretty good idea about what you've done. I understand that you're about through with the screening process down there. It's a matter of getting it all on paper now, and that you are maybe a little bit further along than maybe some of the rest of them are. You're going to pick up a couple of seats in the House and another full senator, and we want very much to have good people fill those positions. We got B.C. Smith with us here, who is running for the House, who is a member of my own local union. Matter of fact, he's president of it. And if we don't elect this guy, there's going to be something wrong, because the caliber of opposition he's got is terrible. He's got one fellow that ought to be out here at Whitfield, and another one that's a former member of the Board of Supervisors who was convicted for income tax evasion. Now, BC, if you can't beat this kind of opposition, we're in a hell of a fix, aren't we?
Lord, I don't even know if they recommended me now, if they're going along with it.
Yeah, they reluctantly come around to support you.
I appreciate that. As I say, I haven't seen a report either. I have to be one.
Now we got a couple of other situations. I believe we've heard from all the CLUs now.
Yeah.
But we got a couple of other situations I want to touch on briefly. Yeah.
If I may, Claude, down there in Harrison County, we have a lot of commuters.
Right.
We have a lot of them working in Yarwood.
Right.
We have a lot of them working over in Pascagoula.
Right.
And they belong to local unions, but they live in Harrison County under our jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like to know if there would be some way that we could get the name of those people that are union members living in our jurisdiction but working out of a local, out of our jurisdiction.
Yeah, we've got a lot of them. We got, remember what we do, what we got in the office now on the addressograph system, we've got regardless of what union the member belongs to, we got them filed by counties, by residents. So we do have quite a few of the names and addresses of the people you interested in. Yeah.
I think if we could get a list of that, it would help us a whole lot. We'd know just exactly who to contact.
All right. right, we'll talk to you after this meeting's over with and see what kind of information you need. Now, Eula Burdette, I wanna talk to you just a minute about you talking with Vasco Singley. I see where he's got several opponents this time around. I think it would be good if you go talk with the gentleman and get him to give you some kind of commitment about the speaker's situation. Tell him that we are very concerned about it. We're not trying to put him on the spot about voting for any particular man. You know what I'm talking about, but we sure don't want him committing himself to junking.
Well, let me say this, Porter Broom, who is our president, will be here next tomorrow.
Yeah.
And he is in that thing, the family, of course, I'll go too.
Yeah.
But I think Porter will have more bearing than I will. Of course, I'll go with him if he wants to do it.
All right.
Go separately.
Well, anyhow, we want to make sure he's
Yeah.
talked to by somebody over there.
Well, let me ask you this,
Yeah.
why is it he voted Representative Paul?
Buddy, how do you consider saying that? Does he usually vote? He usually votes pretty good, doesn't he? He usually does all right. We haven't had too many crucial votes over there, you know, because you'll find some in that report there, but on the bills that we have, like workman's comp improvements of 68, unemployment this time around, he's voted all right. I think you might well stay with him myself, provided you can get him on the speakers thing, you know. Jim, we're gonna have to depend on our Collartown local over there with, what's his name, Smith, ain't it? Their representative? What's the guy's name from Collartown?
Cunningham's the representative.
Hmm?
Oh, I don't know who the,
What's the
state
guy's name
representative
from
is.
Collartown?
I represent Burris
Neil
County.
Smith. Neil Smith.
Neil Smith.
We need to get some of our people in that Tylertown local, to talk to Neil Smith. You might know some of those people over there.
I'll talk to Cunningham, they're busy.
They'll be,
All right.
got 6, 7 delegates.
All right, anyhow, we want to try to, as far as we can, touch base with everybody we think we got any influence with. Now, in the Macomb situation, I've already been talking to Ms. Smith here about that situation, and we're trying to set up right now a committee of the people that we have in there, and I personally went in there a couple of times myself. We got 2 good representatives from down in that area, William Guy and Clark Reeves, who I've talked to personally about this thing, and they're with you already, both of them. Now, Dr. Ruth don't have any opposition, but I intend to talk to Doc about this particular situation and threaten him with an independent candidate if he don't go with us. And it might be a good idea if you was to do the same thing. Now, the boys from Hankins Container told me they'd try to have some people up here tomorrow, and what I hope to do while you're all here is to get a meeting with whoever's here from that particular area. Now, we got 1 or 2 other situations that I don't guess is any need me burden you with, but have we covered this thing pretty well, you think?
Pretty good, Paul.
Okay, but I think, do any of you have any other reports that you think you need to bring up here at this particular time? I know you're all hot and would like to get out of this place over there, so we're gonna try to bring it to a close as soon as we can in the back.
Lord, I'd like to say something to all of us that's here. I'm not much at talking, but I found a piece of paper as I was walking through the shop the other day, and this is a true story. I've been over and picked it up and decided I'd read it, and I think it's something that we all should listen to, and this is no joke. They say the body of every organization is structured from 4 kinds of bones. There are the wishbones who spend all their time wishing someone would do the work. Then there are the jawbones who do all the talking but little else. The knuckle bones knock everything anybody else tries to do. Fortunately, in every organization there are the backbones who get on the load and do most of the work. And I think we all here should be backbones, and I think we can do something about it.
Well, I think everybody in this room falls in that category. You wouldn't be here. That's the way I personally feel about it. And you know, I want you to know that Tom Knight and myself greatly appreciate what you've done. And it has to be that way. You're the ones that have to get out here and really get the job done. But we have a golden opportunity in this election, as Milton Case told you, to really turn this state around. And the key to it is what we're talking about here now, electing the right people to the legislature, who in turn will elect a decent Speaker of the House. Okay, Tom, what did you want to say?
I
wanted to simply mention to you the fact that if you hadn't got enough material, I know we've tried to see that each central body had a supply of questionnaires and of course evaluation sheets and the instruction sheets as to how to use them and various and sundry things. Now, I know some of you probably are short of material. If you need some additional material, I just brought in a box there that's got just a little bit of anything you want in it except money. And I don't have that with me. And you didn't hear the budget when it went busted last week. You just didn't have your hearing aid plugged in. Now, I think that what Curtis said was pretty well. I knew he'd been after me for months now, and he knew pretty well what to do, what to come up with to more or less nullify anything that I would say. But seriously, I do want to say this. Without you, and I'm all jokes aside, without you folks in this room, the labor movement wouldn't be of any value in this state, frankly. I don't think there's any words, I don't think there's any deeds that can really express and show our appreciation for the diligence, the never-ceasing efforts that you people put forth. You are the backbone of what we call the labor movement. Now, we've already said a number of times that we've had problems upon top of problems upon top of problems this year. I don't know if we're going to overcome them or not. I don't guess we ever will, all of them. I know we've rode you pretty hard this year about getting your committees set up, about finding out who the candidates are, and about trying to get them interviewed. I think everybody is doing their job, but let me once again, and this young lady sitting over here at the end of this table that is looking and listening, everything, all eyes and all ears. She is part of a two-girl team, really. That really, after all the talking's done and all the maneuvering has been done, all the wheels spinning, when we talk about getting mail ready and getting anything else ready that's in print, it all falls back to these two girls. Now, I said that to say this, and I've talked to all of you central body officers about this a number of times, where we ordinarily have 2 months between the Coke convention, which is going to come off tomorrow morning, and the first primary. We got 5 weeks. 5 weeks. Now, does that tell you anything? We got 5 weeks. Now, again, I'm going to urge you, as sincerely as I know how, to please keep the heat on. Because if we don't keep the pressure on 24 hours a day, I'm afraid we're just not going to get the job done. Because it's simply this, that if the people know, the affiliated membership, whose names we have on the clips, know who we're supporting, then it's got to be, the mail's got to be prepared. Now, this is not just Tom Knight talking. This is not for me or not for anybody, but this is a matter of fact. We've only got 5 weeks till the first primary. We're going to have to keep the heat on if we get the interviews completed and get the reports prepared and get them into our office in order that we can get this in the mail. We're just not going to make it. Consequently, we're not going to get this man elected speaker. And we're not going to get the job done all the way around, Lord. Now, you people right here have got the future. You've got this program in your hands. And a few more that's not here for one reason or another. You've got it in your hands. We're going to do everything we possibly can. We don't care what you call us. Just call us in time and call us when it's time to eat. We're going to do every single thing we can to help. But it's up to you and you out there in the field to get the job done. We'll have a few more words to say about this tomorrow if we don't lose our voice between now and then. Thank you.
Okay, Tom, some of you met Dan Powell here at the board meeting this morning. He's been sitting here listening to all of this, and I thought I ought to afford him an opportunity to have a word to say before we break up. Of course, he's going to be on the program tomorrow, and
man, you've been sitting here listening to all this afternoon. What do you think?
Now, Paul is area court director.
I am greatly encouraged by what I've seen here. As a few of you know, I've probably been coming to this state before in political action in the labor movement, before some of you here today were born.
We knew you was pretty old.
Yeah, I'm almost as old as Tom Knight. Tom's only about 20 years older than I am. But,
Age don't have nothing to do with it, bud. Looks and brains that count.
yeah, that eliminates you. But what I started to say before I was interrupted by Grandpappy Knight is that you measure progress by where you came from. And you've made a lot of progress in Mississippi. And in one respect, you're leading every other state in my area in terms of the wisdom of the strategy that you've adopted here to go after the speakership and the lieutenant governor. Now, in many of these states in the South, labor goes out and throws all their eggs into the governor's election. And in some cases they win, only to find that even with a friendly governor in the mansion, they can't get anything through the legislature because they've got a hostile speaker and a hostile president of the Senate, and their bills are assigned to hostile committees, and they never come out. Give me the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate in Mississippi, you can have the government. Because if you get these two offices, you are in the strongest position you've ever been in this state before, to get through legislation that will benefit not just organized labor, because there's never been an instance where labor came out for a bill that was limited exclusively to benefit labor, but legislation that will benefit every man and woman in this state that works for a living. As I say, I think you've made a lot of progress. It's been hard down here, and there have been times when I would think about Tom and Claude, and I'd think, my God, how do they stand this? I think the darkest part came in 62, 63, in the middle 60s. But we're beginning to wake up now, and we're beginning to see what's involved. I don't think that Mr. Swan is going to be able to influence as many of our people this year as he did 4 years ago. Because I think that we are fast learning that we have been fooled for a long time by these legislators and these public officials who told you if you elected them to office, they were going to prevent desegregation in the state. Now, they had a heyday in 1956 and since, and not one promise that they made to you has been kept. Race is not the issue in this state. The issue in this state is the economic well-being of the people.
Right.
Better workman's compensation, better unemployment insurance. And God knows there's need for a minimum wage law in this state. There's need for the Department of Labor. There's need for better education for our children, more money for schools. Now these things are the issues. These things are the issues. Not school busing, because there's not a darn thing that the legislature or the governor of this state can do about school busing. that's going to be decided with the United States Supreme Court. So I'm encouraged here today by what I see. And I believe with the people that we've got in this room, that if you go back into your localities, as I'm sure that you're going to do, that in 1971, we are going to have a new day in Mississippi. I'm encouraged by the young people that I see in this group, and by the young people that I see in the legislature, because these people are the hope of the labor movement and the hope of Mississippi. It's a privilege to be here with you. Thank you, Claude.
Thank you, Danny.
Well, do we have anything else we need to get out of the way now?
Jim, let me ask you, did you want to meet with the committee, your committee?
The ones of them that's here, I guess we could meet a few minutes, Tom, some of them still.
The Restoration Committee, you like them to meet where?
Just
Stay here?
Yeah, just
Need to gather all this stuff up. All right, if we don't have anything else.
I'd like to say
Yeah.
one word.
All right.
In addition to what Mr. Dan Powell just said, I've been in this labor movement in the state of Mississippi for a long time. And I've heard a long time ago that someday we might have candidates that were running for public office knocking on our door wanting to get in. I personally saw that happen in screening these candidates this year, because we had one candidate that we had invited in to talk to, and some other candidates for public office in Mississippi found out that that candidate was in the room talking to the screening committee, and they were pacing up and down the sidewalk, literally wanting to know what was going on in that room. Is that right?
Right.
They were wanting to get in there and be interviewed themselves. But we were not interviewing their opposition, and the resultant was that we had no invitations out for that particular office to come in and be interviewed, and incidentally is a statewide office. But I have lived long enough to see what I heard many years ago, that we would sit in a room and a man would have courage enough, that's a candidate for Speaker of the House of Representatives, to come in and take part in our meeting and wanting our support for his candidacy for the Speaker of the House of Representatives. When the gentleman said back there about his little joke as compared with what, let's compare 1971 in Mississippi with 1945 in Mississippi. We couldn't even rent a room in the city of Jackson to hold a meeting, Claude. We were outcasts. Now people are seeking our support. We have a long ways to go, but in comparison with what, we've come a long ways.
Thank you, Brother Edwards, on the old timers. Okay, have nothing else to take up here. We'll adjourn the meeting, and all of you that haven't registered, we want you to do so. Brother Jackson wants to meet with the